Are you there?
Let's call this meeting of the Allen Port Authority together for Wednesday, March the 9th, 2020. 6 p.m. We'll start with the invocation. Mr. Cole and Jan Pledge.
Continuing this meeting, and that you would help us to do the things that would honor the taxpayers of Nassau County. Thank you again for this great country. We pray for our leaders, our first responders, and servicemen and women. Protect them. After all this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Commissioner Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Hannah.
Here.
Commissioner Franklin.
Here.
He's here. He isn't. Vice Chairman Cole.
Here.
Chairman Forward.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Let's move right in. We've got a long agenda tonight, so we'll move right into it. Port Attorney's report. Please, sir. Skipping the minutes. Oh. I got it. Yeah, let's do the minutes. Oh, let me get this closer so I can see it. Okay. Audience comments. Mr. Ross, Chip Ross, you may come forward.
My name is Chip Ross, 10 North 3rd Street, Huntington Beach, Florida. Two things. Number one, I noticed on your agenda tonight that you have the approval of a warehouse. I also noticed, I called the building department today, and that Ford has not asked for a building permit or gone before the planning department to for the technical review committee. And I'll give you the same advice I give any citizen in the community, that before you spend a great deal of time, money, and effort, you should probably go before them to make sure that there's nothing that will complicate it. Number two, this document is a copy from a public website to do with the bond that was issued for the port. And it gives the quarterly financials. And I'm just curious why bondholders can get that information and why the Ocean Highway Port Authority commissioners and the public here is not provided that information on a quarterly basis. And I would hope that you would, this is a very comprehensive thing. I think it would be helpful for the community. I think it would be helpful for you in monitoring the port. And I would hope you would proceed to go forward and require the operator to provide that information that they provided for bonds. Thank you.
Where did you get this, Mr. Ross?
There's a website called EMMA, E-M-M-A, which is a compilation by one of the federal agencies on bonds. And so you can go on that and find any bond and then find public information about it.
Specifically municipal bonds.
Specifically, yes.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along here. Approval of minutes. You want to take them together or separate?
I'd like to do it.
Okay, we'll start with February the 9th, the monthly meeting minutes. Any questions or concerns?
I noticed on the February 9th one, the spot that has Commissioner Cole listed as a comment that I made.
What page is that?
I apologize, I had it up, but it wasn't just cut down on that one. Give me a minute, I'll find it again for you, sorry. Give me a minute, I'll be back to you.
Okay.
Page 16 or first paragraph, page 16. Is that right? Like the last sentence of the first paragraph. It's page 16 of the minutes. But
Of the minutes.
the packet, it would be further down.
Under unfinished business.
Yes. Under, no, actually it's under.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Have a good one now.
Bottom of 16.
In the minutes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a few.
Yeah, there's gonna be some in there, and I know why. I'll explain that first. Is Patrick's secretary is doing the minutes, and it's hard for her to understand.
We need to speak up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to speak up, and I'm all for buying a recording, a recorder, to record everybody and record the meeting minutes. So that would help. But maybe we got another solution to that tonight. We'll talk about that too. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
And I was just gonna say, because I try to proofread these too, because I'm here, really hard to figure out who's talking when you're speaking over each other. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, we don't, like other organizations, we get permission to talk first, we just kind of talk. Maybe we need to change it.
The bottom of page 4 of the minutes. There's discussion about, it's a bullet that starts with Commissioner Hill, it's under financial reports. So that fee, I just want to make a factual clarification that we have paid the chamber fee and it is for the current year.
Yes.
And it should be coextensive with our fiscal year with a difference of 1 month. So basically, we're covered for 11 months of our current fiscal year, and then we'll have to pay for that additional month because our fiscal year doesn't align with their fiscal year. I just wanted to follow back up since it appeared to be an open item on our financials.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Hill. Can you repeat that again? And-
It's on the bottom of page 4 of the minutes.
Okay. Under audit report,
It starts with Commissioner Hill asked,
if the Chamber of Commerce fee, okay,
and so I just wanted to clarify that has been paid.
okay.
And so then on page 10 of the minutes,
Let me comment on that. I talked to Pierre about that today, and he said because of when that's paid, it may not.
So it's due in July or August.
Right,
I think that's when they invoice us.
Yes.
Right, and so we pay in August for the year.
Right,
So obviously,
But
in
it's paid in
August,
advance.
and that's why it doesn't show up on the budget.
well, so it doesn't show up on this year because we
Right.
don't pay
Because
until
it's
August
paid
of this
till
year.
August, yeah,
Okay, so we paid in August,
got question.
we told us for X amount of months.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not gonna argue with you on where it needs to be accounted for, because that's
Yeah.
your, I don't, I will defer to you.
It's done.
Okay, so then on page 10 of the minutes, in the first full paragraph, the last, I think it's the second to last line, it says, is idle dockage, and instead of labor fee, it needs to say lay birthing, LAYBERTHING.
On page 10.
That's page 10, first full paragraph,
Oh.
second to last line.
So it should read, is idle dockage laid birthing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Committee, it was on the committee reports page.
Yeah.
And then where it says, for the TCC, Commissioner Cole put the pen to the code.
So it's under TCC.
Yeah, it was the committee reports page, and
Mhm.
then the coordinating committee, it says Commissioner Cole is attended to the code. It was actually me.
So it should read Commissioner Hannah.
Yeah. All right, anything else? Nothing else?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I wasn't done, I was trying to find my next page, on page 11. And without the lines being numbered, it's hard to find where we are. I know, okay. Page. I have one on page 11, but I can't find it. Let's see, page 12. At the bottom of page 12, the last line, it was quoting me, but that was actually Chairman Fuller, where it says, I understand that, but you know that's where you moved and you knew the support was here. You said that yourself, that was Chairman Fuller. Page 16. In the first line of that page, it says coming into an industrial area, even if it's blocked up, and that should be blocked up because they're blocked as in a barrier.
Yes.
And then at the bottom of page 16. Let's see. The last paragraph. Just 7th line down. The last clause of that sentence would be struck, so after, but the funding is out of ARPA money, I'd ask that there be a period there and strike the rest of that sentence, just because it doesn't add anything
Yeah,
to the
that's not-
minutes, and it's
yeah,
not,
period there.
that's nonsense.
So strike and ARPA,
Yeah.
End period, yeah. And then page 19, and this is my last change.
Okay.
In the Chamber of Commerce report. There is the word ombudsman in the third to last line, and I did not use that word. It's a on-demand
Oh.
transit option. I will try to speak more clearly. Thank you.
Very good.
And I have one just above that on the committee reports where it says emergency management.
Mhm.
And it says, I will participate in a search training, which is an emergency response team. It's CERT, CERT. It's all capital letters, acronym, CERT.
But I also would be remiss if I did not say that she did a really good job considering how inaudible sometimes we can be.
Yes,
So, thank
absolutely.
you.
Yeah, I do appreciate her
Please
help.
hear from her. Regards.
What's her name again?
Tracy.
Tracy, thank you, Tracy.
Changes.
Next motion.
Motion's been made to accept the minutes with changes. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. All right. February 23rd. How many changes we got now? Else? Approved.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion made to accept the minutes for February 23rd, the joint workshop minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passed. All right, court attorney report.
I'm sorry, I just realized that I missed one on that. The one thing was when she did the vote, she didn't say who the yays and nays were. And I think we do have to, if we have one nay, it should indicate. So there was a vote that I dissented on, and it just said one no vote. And I think we really should, for the record, have it.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry for saying that after the motion.
Okay.
I will make the correction.
Okay, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That put you up.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. You have the report, not a whole lot of changes. I will note, on the public records request, I have heard back from the attorneys for Nassau Terminals. They're working to get the documents, and we've also received a couple of additional public records requests from the local paper regarding the activity as well, and we have responded to that, but we're still waiting back from Nassau Terminals Council on their document. In regard to the city attorney, the OVA, able to speak with Tammy Bach tomorrow about that case. We'll have a discussion about that, and if anybody else to see. And the other big one, I know it's come up and you all have asked, I am working on it, but for the next meeting, I will have a draft public records policy and board bylaws.
And thank you for giving me the last request that I made for the engagement letter after the last meeting. You asked me to check my emails and I have not received that. So thank you for sending that over.
Sure.
Public records policy and what?
Board bylaws.
Board bylaws.
So do we know what the ask from the city is? Like in terms of like what they would settle for?
No.
They haven't thrown out any numbers.
No.
Okay. Any questions for Patrick? All right, Pierre, you are up.
So the monthly treasurer's report is in your folder. So the balance in the accounts is the first thing. So, and then the maintenance accounts is 259,000 does not belong to us. So that's not to leave the account tomorrow. That on the monthly financials, we have not yet received the payment from Worldwide for February. So
February?
So, now I think that may be an issue. They have a new payment system that they're supposed to sign up for. Yeah, so you see there's a zero on the for the fee. So it's coming monthly installment.
250,000 that belong to us in the payment.
That's not reimbursement of the North Carolina trains. Yeah, that's, there's $1,000 payment.
DPMC.
Yeah, so, well, yeah, there's a $371,000 payment to CPMC plus some other payment. Obviously, it's a 50% grant. That's the money back from FDOT for that grant. So it's back so that they can make the next invoice payment to CPMC. So there's CPMC invoices outstanding. They're waiting on that. As far as the ARPA funds, so we received positive, so the funds were, so the reimbursement request for the ARPA funds for the payroll, for the OHPA payroll from March through December was submitted, and it's been approved. So it's gone through, so it went through the first process, so there's 2 reviews. The first is our contacts, and then it goes to further review. They've both been approved, and so now it's with the payment authority, the Florida Payment Authority. So we're waiting on that payment. I mean, I would expect it within the next 2 weeks, but you know, I won't say any more than that because I would expect it, but it's all been approved as far as I know. There was no issues at all, no issues were raised, and so that's on its way. And so we've started the process of that money flowing. And so now it's really just what other items can we submit for reimbursement? Obviously, that's the payroll, so we'll be submitting the payroll on everything.
Everybody knows how difficult it is to deal with the government, and Pierre sent this request in for reimbursement for $116,700 and some odd dollars. And he got an email back several days later. Good morning. We have reviewed at the district and have sent over to the state Seaport office for final review. Once that review is complete and if no comment provided, we will route the department's financial services office for the process. Then got an email this afternoon or yesterday. Good afternoon. The state Seaport office completed their review, and I routed invoice number 1 to the department's contact payment office for processing this afternoon. So hopefully we'll get that in the next week or so. So that will definitely help the budget.
So we'll be working on the next one, obviously, besides the ARPA grants. We are working on submitting for the master plan, the payments that we've made to the master plan.
They give us any advice on how to make payments to the port employees? Yes.
It asked that specific question originally. They were not generally favorable, but they were not unfavorable. But the second call that we got after our meeting, specifically where, as I said, they were getting very worried about, and that's where we had the discussion here at the meeting, that everything had to meet federal procurement process, okay, for payment through the grant. So that would be other than wages. And that's why I said all we submitted to date are OHPA wages for the commissioner.
Correct.
And yeah, and Rosanna's on the payroll, so W-2 and those kind of wages. That's all we submitted to date. So we have a couple other items we've talked about, and I don't know, have we talked about the security? Have we gone any further about rebidding that? So we
We're
could
going
meet the
to
federal.
talk about that later.
Okay,
Yeah.
so obviously, and other items where we could meet the federal procurement process. So we would more than likely submit this tug.
So
Maintenance.
just going back to the employees, sorry to interrupt, but going back to the payments to employees, there are ways that we can pay through a nonprofit or community-based organization under ARPA. So would there be a way for us to structure something like that?
I don't know, I have no idea. Again, no, we could not submit to ARPA a reimbursement for paying Barnabas or someone like that. As I understand it, the direction that we've gotten is that these have to be port-related expenditures,
Right.
okay? And they have to be through a federal procurement process. Most of the other ports, the instructions that we received, were most of the other ports were doing wages only. And that's why they said the wages were no problem, flowed right through. When we get to beyond that, as I said, and that's where they said the security, if we do a federal procurement process, and we could show we went through that process, then we will be able to submit those for reimbursement, because obviously, but beyond that, I don't, and again, we have no contractual relationship with these employees.
So if I understand it correctly, tell me if I'm wrong, the reason we cannot pay employees is because we did not bid the operating agreement through the federal procurement process.
The reason we can't pay them as employees is because they're not OPIC employees. And the company they work for was not secured through a federally compliant contract. So if we get audited later, the fear is if we pay directly with ARPA reimbursement money or seek ARPA reimbursement money directly for those types of payments, the money is likely to be asked for back. What they landed on was if you want to use money that you get as reimbursement to do other things with, such as employee bonuses or any other number of things, that's fine. It's your money at that point. It's properly reimbursed for previous expenses, so you can do whatever you want with it. But doing it directly with ARPA reimbursement funds, it would have to come under a federally compliant contract. And what Pierre mentions with the other ports is I talked to somebody at Port Canaveral and I talked to somebody at Jacksport. What they've been doing, as was told to me, is they're paying for employee salaries and benefits of their own employees. No contracted employees, no third parties, just their own. And they're using almost all of their ARPA money exclusively for that so that they don't get caught up in some audit review and questions later and have to refund money that they've already spent.
And how are contractors getting any relief in those instances?
I don't know.
So they would be getting relief through private PPP or?
Yeah.
Correct. And so, and the other point that the coordinators made is obviously that OHPA is a higher risk because of receiving these federal grants, because we receive no other federal grants. We receive very limited federal grants. We have limited infrastructure. We have limited staff, which means, in other words, the point they were making was that someone like Port Canaveral, who receives federal grants constantly, is much less likely because they have an infrastructure that can handle federal grants, understands the federal procurement process. Versus obviously OHPA, again, we do not receive that many federal grants. And so we're at higher risk of being audited. So questions will be asked. And so their general was to, as I said, try and stay within the lines as much as possible. And that's where I said, the problem for us is for the wages, we will not pay enough wages before December 24th to use the federal grant. Whereas Port Canaveral may.
Yeah, they got a lot more employees.
Right, so they may have enough that they will be able to access the federal grants. And that's where, as I said, we're talking about security, other items where we could seek reimbursement from, as I said, from this grant, but.
And I also talked to Jacksport about, do they have somebody that can help us put together a federally compliant procurement? Contract. And their response was they use somebody on the outside. They don't even do that in-house. So technical and it changes. And so they have a consultant that does all that for them. And I have those names. They gave me two. One of them is very expensive. And the other one, general discussion, but didn't really go that much further because I didn't want to get us into more expenses. So these larger ports are doing ARPA funding totally different than what, than what we're having to do. And I think it also reflects on that's why we only got the amount that we did, as opposed to what we have like 80 million, something like that, something crazy. But they're gonna use all of it on salaries and benefits, like how many people they have.
Does the city have someone that they're using for their ARPA?
They have a totally different plan
They-
and process.
Mhm.
I spoke to him and he said, ours is different. He would be able to advise us on that.
Did you make direct payments to the court employees through these funds, or have they received any direct payments through you?
Well, all the payments that we received,
No, I mean, COVID relief type payments.
well, none of them were relieved at any time, continued to work full time, there was no layoff, no furloughs, no reduction of hours.
You just shut it off.
Salary was paid. Prosecutors, workers, seem to fit into the intent of rewarding those workers and also incentivizing them to stay on.
Be sure you're talking to the mic
Oh,
for our
okay.
recorder.
Sorry about that.
Because they haven't had a reduction in the current time. Working.
And they're not paid off.
Yeah, there were no extraordinary payments.
But that was, what, 2 years ago for the
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah.
They're still now facing, as the aftermath of COVID, they're facing being on the lower scale of competitive wages. And we have increased several times their wages. And they're facing other employers that are offering startup sign-on bonuses and retention bonuses, and that we're not going to do that. That would be the idea of the one-time bonus payment that the board originally approved.
So I did hear that you recruited someone from away from the city because you were paying more. And so kudos to you for creating jobs locally and attracting highly skilled labor. And I mean that sincerely. That's awesome that you're paying a wage that's competitive, not good for the city. It's good for the job you're staying local, and that, the city's not losing them to Jacksonville, for example. So that's awesome.
Well, thanks for noting that. And I appreciate your comments, but there's a little more to the story. First of all, we never would intend to compete with the city for labor. They pay more generally, and their benefits are so far beyond what we could afford. However, that employee started with us. We trained him. I had a personal interest in him because he has a tremendous amount of talent. So I was literally mentoring him and with some of our managers. And the city were the ones who lured him away with higher wages and better benefits. And when he left, I said, young man, you have to go out, you have to try this, you have to make more money for your family, but he was just perfect for the port, his skill set, the way he interacted with the rest of our employees. I said, I'm hoping you're going to be back, and I have a funny feeling you just might be. Our door's always open. So we kept him working part-time when he wasn't working for the city. And sure enough, recently, with our ability to offer a little bit more, still not as much as the city, he basically came back home, put it that way. That's the way we looked at it. It was a great story all around because he did some great work for the city. He learned some additional things, and now he's back with us. I hope they're not trying to lure him back. I hope we could just call it a draw at this point. But he's a fine young man and a welcome addition to any company really that he would work for.
So I will say, back to the employee payment, obviously, we're going to receive $116,000 in the next 2 weeks. The question to the board would be, what do we want to do with that money? That is replacement money for wages that have already been paid.
Talk about that when we get it. I want to go back to the budget for just a minute. The only thing I had a question was we don't have anything budgeted for a court reporter, and I know we've used one, there won't be any kind of payment to that.
That should be part of our invoicing as opposed to a separate invoice delivered to you. It comes to us.
And all that would go into the board account. We just don't split that out because we don't use them
Is
enough.
that on
to-
this attorney report that you gave us today? Is that in there?
So that's, obviously that's billing through January.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was included in there or not. So,
October to January.
So if we received an invoice, then we would have paid it and added it to your
Gotcha.
invoice, whether that's all happened yet or not. I can look.
I just want to make sure you got paid. Okay,
so I have one more.
yeah, go ahead.
So obviously we have the request from the port operator to use the maintenance funds to, I sent everyone an email showing the payment request. So it's $149,000, $149,093.40 due to St. John's Shipbuilding for tugboat maintenance.
Yes.
And so the maintenance funds are available. So there's 170, so there's two invoices. We'll cover this one first. So there are funds in the maintenance fund available to pay that invoice. And so the port operator requests that we make that payment for the maintenance of the tugboat. So I need your approval.
That's 149,000, right? Oh, 134.
So 149,093.40 is the payment that we're gonna make to St. John's Shipbuilding.
Well, I got,
We will be reimbursed $15,000 from Worldwide,
oh, I see.
which is their
That's way
participant. Well, just because, so they, first of all, we need to get ship out of there, the tug out of there as quickly as possible. So they requested a wire transfer. So obviously,
So you'll request the 15 back from them, or they'll just give it to us, or us?
we'll invoice them, but
Yeah, okay.
they've agreed to submit that. So remember, the contract, the port operating agreement says for all the Ocean Island Port Authority assets,
We pay
the
it up.
operator is responsible for the first 15,000.
Yes,
And then the Ocean Island Port Authority, to the extent funds are available.
right.
Obviously, we have $176,000 in maintenance account. And so again, this is a 5-year tug maintenance. The expenses kind of exceeded the estimate, but if I understand it was
Yeah,
work that needed to be done. So, and so the request is to approve that payment, so we can make that payment and get the tugboat out of St. John's. Obviously, we're incurring storage charges. The work is done, it's complete. All the work on the invoice has been completed. So the tugboat is now waiting, but obviously they will not release it until we pay it.
All right, I talked to Chris about this today. I have a lot of questions about this. Because we were given, and I want Chris to speak on this, we were given an invoice or we were given an estimate so much for the tugboat repair. The problem, when they got it over there, all these costs started coming in.
Mhm.
And it just ballooned.
Right.
And could you speak to why that is? Why were they authorized to keep doing all that stuff? Or how did that work?
Well, they were, but just to go back, so under the tugboat maintenance fund, your administrator and manager of the maintenance program is Mark Miller, until such time as that fund was exhausted. So Mark negotiated the original proposal with St. John's, which I believe was about $79,000 for the 5-year haul out, hull inspection, and various maintenance work. And there was a specific defect called the shuttle boxes, which is where the shaft of the propellers penetrate through the hull. And there's bearings in there, and some liquid is allowed.
That was the original problem that they had.
Yeah, but the haul out was required by Coast Guard regulations anyway. So yes, Pierre and I both received that proposal, which I believe, as I said, was about $79,000. The boat was taken down. Now, Mark managed the process with St. John's, again, as the agent for the tugboat maintenance account. Obviously, he's extremely skilled at this. He probably would be the best person to do it. And he also had the captain and Henry, the chief engineer, which have now shifted from his employ to our employ, now that the fund is exhausted. And they were supervising this work. What this really is when you haul the boat out, meaning it's up on blocks, it's out of the water, and you can fully inspect the underside of the boat. The propellers have to be removed and refinished. The shafts have to be straightened. They look at everything, and it's really their only opportunity to give that thorough inspection. I call it scope creep. It's no different than when you take your car in for an oil change and they come back to Mr. Fuller, I'm sorry, but we see there's a cylinder leaking. I have a bad gasket. Your water pump is going. Next thing you know, $100 turns into $700. It is unfortunate, but I'm confident that everything that was done was needed to be done. I mean, Mark could testify to this, but I have no reason to question any of it. We also had, as I said, his personnel, the two people that know the boat best, the captain, Aaron Moore, and the chief engineer, Henry Paulson, I witnessed physically all of the work being done. And I think the only thing that caught Pierre and I off guard was the fact that when we saw the final invoice, it was about $100,000 more. Now, I made some calls to people I know in the tugboat industry that operate, different tugboat companies, and, they're saying, be lucky, be thankful. It could have been 500,000. They could have found something that perhaps would have rendered the boat, not usable. But the hull is, none of that happened. The hull and all the systems, the engines, the tanks, the piping, the pumps are all in great working condition now. And so it's sort of like a capital maintenance item. It's not something you do day to day. It's just something that has to be done every 5 years or so. So everybody's confident that this is going to, eliminate any major work. I mean, barring some breakdowns or whatever that we don't anticipate, and that you're going to get a lot of value for that investment.
So have you gone over all this invoice to make sure that everything was done at
As
the right
specified.
cost and
Right.
as specified? You're confident?
Well, I discussed every item with Mark and as well as with Aaron and Henry, who are now working for us. And they're confident that the work was performed, properly, professionally, and that was completed. The only thing I don't really have my own view on is the cost of each item, because that's just not an expertise I have. And again, Mark has assured me that St. John is not a high-priced, type shipyard that the larger commercial companies use, and that they were the right yard, and that they were the most efficient, cost-efficient operators to be able to perform that work. And I think if you know Mark, he's not only professional, but he's quite, he watches every penny. So
He's called me several times.
Yeah. I can't see him giving away anything that he didn't feel was appropriate. And he's come out of a very large tugboat company, and he's managed a fleet of tugboats over his career.
Okay, any questions about this?
Mr. Chairman.
Expense that was almost $100,000 less than this. We discussed paying it out of the escrow maintenance fund, which was a portion of the grant proceeds. And
The $200,000 that we had after the payment of the tug.
And I asked whether that was, correct, and we got the, affirmative answer that that is escrow, that he has the escrow account, that Pierre has the escrow, and that's where it would be paid. And
What has that
that's-
money been used for that they used up that escrow account? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Pierre has published a budget of that entire fund. It's now exhausted, but the last $40,000 of that fund were a down payment against this invoice, and it's reflected on the.
Yeah, so invoice, the actual invoice is $198,000.
Yeah, you would see the credit right there on the second line. I got it.
You're confident that that money was used appropriately and it's all used up before this took place? Yeah.
But we didn't budget for this expenditure.
Nope. Any budget for
And
something.
we didn't receive any notice that this was, that they were finding these issues. I mean, these items that are listed here on the invoice, I don't remember
That's-
your
that's the
report
point
that
I-
they need
that's
to be
the
done.
point I just made, that we didn't know about the cost going up like this, but
Well, and moreover, we've asked about, the whole purpose of this tug is for, the purpose of the grant money we got from the federal government was to have a barge service to the Port of Charleston. And the last time we asked about this, we were told that the Port of Charleston is a disaster because of COVID. Right? And so this project is not even in service according to the federal government. We've asked you for invoices of how much you're taking in for the tug, and you don't give them to us. So in my view, I don't think we should spend any more money on the tug.
spend it on what we've got accrued here, because if we don't, we're gonna get sued. And I don't wanna get into it out of court. I mean, this is maintenance they've done on the tug. Want to talk about settlement? We can talk about that. We've got to pay this one way or another.
Mr. Chairman,
These are not, so obviously, we receive $5,000 a month in maintenance contributions to be used for maintenance of Ocean County Port Authority assets,
That's what that money.
of which the tug is an asset of the Ocean County Port Authority. That money,
Mr. Chairman.
as I said, is available. So the contract says the first $15,000 has to be paid by the operator. The rest is the Ocean County Port Authority's responsibility. If the Ocean County Port Authority does not have those funds available, obviously the operator is still responsible for paying for and making sure these assets are still up and running, the cranes, the tugboat, et cetera. So if these funds are not available, then the operator still has to. So if we didn't have the funds in the maintenance account, the operator would have to pay for this. But we have the funds available in the maintenance account. These are not funds that you can use for anything else other than on Ocean Highland Port Authority assets at the port. They're not available for anything else. They have to be spent on the crane, the warehouses, the tugboat. They're not available to do anything else with.
Mr. Chairman,
Chris, I'd like to formally ask you to provide us with how much we've taken in with that tugboat since you've had it. And
Mr. Chairman,
if you follow up with a letter about that, request that. I'd just like to see how much we're talking about. How much we're running.
If it's worth.
Whether it's worth keeping it or do we want? I know that when that ship had to be moved this week, you had to call 2 tugs over to move it. Our tug could have been one of those, right?
It would have, right?
Yeah, and that's a lot less money that the shipper has to pay to move that ship. So
The ship owner's penalized,
I know, yeah, I know.
essentially.
If we'd have had our tug, he could have saved some money. But I'd like to know how much we're making from the tug. I think we have a right to know that. It's our tug.
Well, it's reported in his bond disclosure, said it was $300,000 for 2020, right?
I don't know.
I mean,
If you provide that information.
Sure.
we'll appreciate it.
Actually, 2021. 2020.
Okay. You done? Oh, yeah.
What are we paying for daily fee for not picking it up? Are we?
Well, it's $140 in dockage a day plus electricity, which we negotiated there. Given the break on dockage, if we pay by tomorrow, and they won't charge $4,900 of additional electric that was approved today, but they just said, we'll give you a break on it. But they're not happy that it's not either.
So they would negotiate that.
We negotiated that down.
when you bring your car to the shop, the person, the mechanic that puts it up on the lift, they tell you when they find an issue and you authorize the repair. So I would like to know if there was ever an authorization of repair.
As I explained, the
I can tell you
Mark
no.
Miller would be the one who authorized it. No, look, Mark would not have let them just go on.
Yeah.
I'm I'm pretty confident. I haven't specifically asked Mark because I trust his experience in the business, but you can ask him. As the scope increased, he would have had to approve these things. I mean, once they did their inspection and review of the vessel out, up on dry dock, obviously these things had to be approved by someone. Initially, he was the one contracting the yard, and then the yard, instructed to actually they have to invoice the owner of the boat.
And I do agree that he should have contacted somebody, either you or us,
Yeah.
to let us know that we needed to do this, this, and this to add on. And hopefully in the future, that's not gonna happen.
Well, first of all, yes, he should have, but of course, we would have all looked at each other and said, well,
Yeah.
we don't have any choice. But now that the fund is, we call it the escrow fund.
Yeah.
What it was, Pierre was the escrow agent, is exhausted. Worldwide now will be taking over all of the maintenance expenses as well as the operating expenses, which were already paid. And the maintenance expenses in 2021 were about $20,000 a month. So we're happy to tell you what we get, and essentially this is not a moneymaker. This is actually, again, providing a service, hopefully at a little bit above cost, but in some cases perhaps below cost.
Helps to attract business.
That's the whole purpose of it. Exactly. It was to help make the barge service feasible. But the barge service is still not feasible because there's no shippers willing to use it, and there's no tugboat contractor willing to tow it, and there's no other port willing to take it. And Marriott is aware of all these things. They know that that part of the project is aspirational, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with using the port, the boat, to benefit the port in a more general way, now that the port has taken responsibility for it. Operates being maintained.
I would also like to point out that there's a $15,000 quote, contribution from the operator. And then we also get this invoice for the crane, which lists invoice numbers with no further explanation. Invoice numbers and dates. Did you get these invoices? It just happens to be for $16,000 at the same time.
I think we got invoices for that, and it's been a while.
You should have all the invoices.
Yeah.
If you don't,
I've seen them, it's for electrical repair and other things to the lever crane. But is that the newest crane, the lever?
I think that's the first leader.
Right, right.
Yeah, the mobile
The
harbor.
blue one.
The blue one.
This is from October.
We also don't have the rates for the tug included in our tariff. So if it's an OPA asset over which we have control, then why don't we have the rates for the tug set in our tariff?
We're gonna talk about the tariff in a few minutes, and we'll get into that discussion.
The U.S. Maritime Administration requires that we set the tariff for our assets.
Yes,
And the only exemptions from the tariff are for vessels that have a contract more than 8 vessel calls per year.
You have some authority you want to share with me? I don't know where you
It's in
get
our
it.
tariff,
It's in whose tariff?
OPA's tariff.
Does that mean that it's correct? That tariff was last rewritten about 20 years ago. The rates were adjusted 7 or 8 years ago. That's an extremely old document.
So you're saying that you're charging rates different than the tariff?
I'm not going to revisit this discussion. I have my approach of how the tariffs work, which I believe is well founded. And until somebody else can show us something different, we have negotiated service contracts by and large.
I'm gonna mix any talk about the tariff right now, because
Yeah,
we're gonna get into
right.
discussion with that in a few minutes, and we can bring all this up then, so let's move on right now. You've got this invoice. Also, well, you got this invoice, we need to get a motion on to pay the $149,093.40 from the maintenance account.
I'll second the motion, which I would say.
Motion made and seconded to pay this invoice of $158,135.50, no, I'm sorry, $149,093.40 from the maintenance account for the tugboat.
This is, so for the discussion part, this is an unbudgeted major expenditure for a vessel that
Yes, it
we
is.
have serious concerns about and have asked lots of questions and not received any answers. We got an estimate that was for almost $100,000 less. And now there's all these things on the invoice that we did not ask for or authorize.
So are you saying we couldn't pay it?
We're correct.
So you're saying we're waiting on the lawsuit?
No, I'm saying that we should demand all the financial records. I think we should notify the federal government that we think an asset's being used contrary to the grant requirements, because it's not our money. It's not our money.
Patrick, help.
What you want me to say?
Well,
I don't know what question you have for me.
should we not pay this and see what happens or what? We need the tug back. We have to pay it to get the tug back. If we don't pay it, then they're gonna sue us.
You're not asking him a legal question, you're asking him a policy question.
I'm asking him for his personal opinion.
Is he now a member of the board?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm not gonna give a personal opinion. I think you have,
all right,
you have an invoice
give
here.
me a legal opinion.
You have an invoice here. I know it seems like there's some unanswered questions. The question right now is whether you want your time back.
And it's accruing fees every day sitting over there. And we wanna keep adding to this?
I think we should respond to the tugboat repair company and let them know that these were unauthorized repairs and ask for more information about. the process.
Authorized by your agent, Mark Miller. He
Well,
is the,
we
he
had
is
an
the
amount-
maintenance
we had an amount
contract.
certain.
Excuse me?
We had an amount certain when we approved the
Look,
expense.
I haven't seen that.
I don't believe you approved the expense,
We did. It came before the board.
the 75,000.
No. That's
We had an
not true.
estimate. We had an estimate.
No,
We discussed it.
we
We didn't approve anything.
Because the original estimate was sent to the escrow account. So that never came before the board for approval. It didn't come out of the.
We discussed it at our meeting with you.
We discussed it. We didn't approve it. We didn't vote on anything.
I have to go back and look at the minutes, but
I can look because we didn't.
Well, and it's not your budget, it's the maintenance fund, which is funded entirely by Worldwide. We
this
just
is
made a
our budget.
60,000
The maintenance
No.
fund is in our budget. Is it not our book account? Are you doing his books now?
He lays a notebook account. To maintain local assets.
Which is paid into by the operator.
In a separate payment, 5,000 a month, not in addition to what we pay.
Specifically for these purposes.
Mr. Franklin, you getting all this?
I'm hearing it, but can y'all hear me?
Still there?
One moment.
I can.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting it, and this is off a big bill, and when you give an estimate, usually you're within 10 or 15% of what it's gonna cost. But we're gonna have to pay the bill to get the tugboat back, but I feel that we need to sit down and make an agreement on this tugboat if we're gonna have to be spending this kind of money. We had $200-something thousand in it.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Go ahead.
We need to sit down and make some kind of agreement on this tugboat, because if we're gonna be hit with bills like this, it'll eat up all of our maintenance account, and we won't have anything when an emergency comes along.
Well,
Did you get that?
so I'll just say, so Commissioner, obviously in an emergency, Worldwide is responsible to pay. If there's no funds available in this maintenance account, there is no question. So the only reason this is coming before the Ocean Island Port Authority is because there's funds available in the maintenance account. If there was no funds available, then Worldwide would be responsible for paying.
I understand that, and we're gonna have to pay this bill to get our tugboat back out of the shop. I understand that. But again, this tugboat needs to be discussed.
Go ahead, Commissioner Franklin.
This tugboat needs to be discussed at some point or another, because if we've already used up our $200-something thousand we had in escrow, now we got $130-something thousand bill. What we're gonna have next year? So We have to pay it. I vote to pay it. We're gonna have to pay it to get it out of the shop.
So, sorry, thank you, Commissioner Franklin. To Commissioner Hill's question, that has been the maintenance account for the last 15 years. The money goes into the maintenance account and it goes out for projects. It does not, we are not building
That's why it's called a
funds.
Maintenance.
We have no plans for any future maintenance that we're building funds for. These are funds to use for the maintenance of the port assets. We've never had $300,000 in the port maintenance account. It's used up every time it's used up. When Senator Morgan was here and they needed a capital project, they put the money in the maintenance account and they emptied it.
But we have a new operating agreement. It's called a maintenance reserve.
No,
We're
it's
required
been,
for $5,000.
there's no change to the maintenance fund. That's the way the maintenance fund, there's no change to the wording of the maintenance fund in the current agreement from the way it's operated for the last 15 years.
Morgan was the operator. We received dockage and mortgage. So we had variable revenues.
But, so we're talking about the maintenance fund.
There were other sources of funding. At this point, we have no additional revenues, no additional funding.
The other
We also
source
had $10 million of debt.
Went to pay our.
So all the dockage and mortgage went to pay debt.
The
It
debt.
was not available for anything other than debt. And that had been, so I'll just say, for 27 years, this port operated. This port was funded with $30 million of capital back in 1992.
Yeah.
For 27 years, this port operated. And after 27 years, we still owe $10 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying, but all the money, all that dockage and mortgage went to pay debt and would have gone to pay debt for the next 15 years.
And we would have had to borrow money at the end.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Kinder Morgan, what happened again?
If I'm not
So,
mistaken, yeah.
I have a question real quick.
Mhm.
Changing it. The money that was in the reserve fund, do you have the receipts from how that was spent? Here, the 200,000?
no.
Huh?
So, no, so I do not have receipts.
For the-
We were not tasked
You
to
have
audit.
invoice.
Invoice.
We received an invoice,
Detailed.
again, from Mark Vila. So from the tugboat operator,
Yeah.
Back in the
sent us
emails.
a monthly invoice, which we paid. No, we did not ask him for supporting invoices for all the documentation behind that.
So my
So
question
he
is,
has it available, and we
Right.
both would review it, and then he would provide a reconciled invoice at the end of the month. And if the credit was due because he estimated more paint than he used, he would give the credit back.
so
Yeah.
the reason I'm asking, is that going to be, okay, so we spent that 200 in a year, plus now the 200.
Right.
Are we looking at similar costs over the next year? for the
Yes.
boat?
For the
And
tugboat.
guess who's bearing it? The previous.
Yeah, you guys, for the,
Right, the fund is gone, bill is gone, it's now on us. We hope to be able to, perhaps trim some of it because we put his two people on permanent staff that he was paying as contractors. But to come back to make the final point Pierre was trying to make for the benefit of Commissioner Hill. So we prepaid all 10 million of that debt up front when we took over this company. And that's the reason why certain terms, certain economic terms in this operating agreement are different. But Pierre is correct. The maintenance agreement wording, which Commissioner Franklin is a big fan of, has not changed. And all of the maintenance revenue funding comes from the operator.
Right.
To be available, to be drawn back in on when it's required for big project, capital maintenance type project. This is a 5-year haul out. This is not going to recur again for the next 5 years, and God willing that we don't suffer a major system breakdown, it won't have to go back into dry dock.
Right.
So this is different than ongoing regular maintenance.
okay.
Capital maintenance, and it comes under exactly the handling that Pierre described.
So I think we've had enough discussion about this. There's a motion on the floor to approve this expenditure of $149,000 maintenance account. All in favor? Let's call the roll on that.
Commissioner Hill,
No,
Commissioner Hannah,
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin,
Yes.
can you repeat that? Commissioner Franklin,
Yes.
That is
Can
your
you hear
vote?
me?
Yes,
Yes.
that is your vote?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Cole,
Yes.
Chairman Fullwood.
Yes. Motion carries 4-1. All right, let's move on to the next bill.
Chairman Fullwood,
Yes.
I would like to just add that we did receive the monthly, or yes, the monthly $20,000 from Worldwide. From the payment from Worldwide, yes. I processed it late at night or
Okay.
early morning, and I,
Okay,
you know,
yeah, yeah. All right,
So
good.
we're paid up to date.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
All right, got something else here?
So obviously the second one is a $16,000 invoice, same account, same issue.
Right.
Same. The 15,000 has been paid. They've presented, they have the list of invoices where they've paid, and they've presented us with the remainder of $16,000. Need approval. I mean, these were consent agenda items, previously, so, but as I said, just because of timing. And because we didn't get them in. But we talked about
So at the end of February, we had $439,000, almost $436,000 in the maintenance account.
176.
Now it's 170.
Well, the $259,000 wire you're about to approve, obviously, which is for an FDOT reimbursement. That's not our money. That's just
Right.
money flowing through the account. So the account has $176,000 at this time.
Is that
So there are funds available to pay this.
after the 149 we're just paying?
Yes.
Okay.
No, sorry.
No.
No,
it's 176.
We have 176,000.
We're taking 150 for the tugboat, and we're gonna take 16 out for that.
Right.
So that'll have 166, that'll be about 10,000 left.
But we owe you 15 back to the government.
Right, and 15 coming back. Okay.
And 5,000.
All right, I need an approval for the invoice for the Libra crane of $16,850. I need a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the payment to Libra.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the expenditure for the Libra crane. Any discussion?
I'm gonna vote no on this one as well. Not, the tug has its own issues. The crane doesn't have some of those issues, but the more we raise these questions about the underlying evidence for the numbers we're being told, I really think we need to have the type of inspection that we used to have with Kinder Morgan, because we keep referencing that relationship and saying we used to approve things, we used to do things. We also had a lot more transparency into the underlying books because there was a reconciliation that was performed by the audit. So there was actually access to the questions we're asking, which validate the audit financials. And so if we're going to be engaging in this type of reimbursement, we're just saying yes without validating those decisions.
If you look at the sheet, everything's on there with the numbers, the invoices.
Yeah, it has invoice numbers.
So I'll just say, obviously, the auditors audited the open court.
Right.
It never validated the court. Kinder Morgan
Right.
had very little transparency because Kinder Morgan,
They never.
this was
they
a
never
bleed
told us.
on the back of an elephant.
Yeah,
There was no chance we could see any financial books from Kinder Morgan.
they never.
And we never saw any
What
financial
our
books.
auditor told me
Yes,
is that he did do a inspection of the accounts when the bonds were in place.
for the ship traffic and the payment of dockage and wharfage based on that ship traffic. So yes, they
Which
went,
we don't even have that.
because that's not part of our, we don't get paid any money for that.
But we're.
That's not
supposed to
part
be
of our
managing-
audited financial statements.
We're supposed to be the Port Authority.
So two different things.
Commissioner, come on now.
And pursuant to our charter, we're supposed to have control over port revenues. It says that in our charter.
Well,
We don't even know what they are. How can we
okay,
have
I'm
control?
not gonna get into this discussion with you right now. If you want to change something, then make a motion to change
Well,
something.
you can
I have a
motion.
motion- I have a motion and a second to approve this expenditure.
I vote
Please
no.
call the roll.
Commissioner Hill,
No.
Commissioner Hannah,
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin,
Yes.
And for Swinburne Garter, we're supposed to have control.
could you repeat that, Commissioner Franklin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Keep moving.
Vice Chairman Cole,
Yes.
Chairman Fullwood.
Yes, motion carried 4-1. All right, what's next? Pierre?
That's all I have.
All right. Thank goodness. All right, everybody good so far? Anybody need a break? All right, it's time for the court operators report. Chris, you're up.
Safe to approach you
there.
I already have it.
You do?
What's a year old?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, did I miss you?
Give you a moment to review. Total tonnage in February, 39,204. So we're up to 90,750 year to date for the first 2 months, which is exceeding last year's pace by 23,000 tons. So we're 34% ahead of last year's pace after the first 2 months. And we had only one paper ship in February. The second one got delayed. So we'll see it in March.
You tell us why I got delayed?
Yeah, congestion in other ports, and that particular client has a limited window on those shipments. They can't get their cargo loaded at Fernandina, and then they ship. So they have to go out and find another ship. We still have the cargo waiting to be loaded.
Okay.
We had a new one-time call from a vessel called the CS Standard. This was a direct ship from China with both containerized cargo and freight bulk cargo under the deck. It was scheduled for months to go into the port of Tampa, and at the last minute, Tampa refused to take them because of congestion and because of priorities for existing port of Tampa customers. And so they diverted to Fernandina. We were able to unload about 120 loaded containers with mostly refrigerated product, which we were able to plug in. Those reefer units, what we called them before reefers got so popular, refrigerated container units, and using the port infrastructure that we maintain and which has been there, we have 45 reefer plug-in receptacles. And so we were able to take that cargo. And also we picked up, you see miscellaneous general cargo, about 6,900 tons of palletized lysine and theanine. These are dry palletized bags, and they're feed additives for livestock. And so we were able to discharge those and They're in one of the warehouses being loaded out to trucks as we speak. So again, some of the capacity that we've built and maintained here is coming into play. So that's the second time that we were able to capture a vessel that was diverted from another port. The first one being somebody that was that vessel that was diverted from Savannah late last year. So I think that's again showing that we're all moving in the right direction, and the Port of Fernandina continues to provide solutions to the supply chain difficulties out there, and to the benefit of Nassau County and the region. We've added probably 3 or 4 additional employees since the last time we were together, and we still have more needs, and just continuing now to have to add additional personnel with the plywood that we're getting. So the business is growing, the port is growing. Any questions?
I want to go back real quick before you continue, Chris. Here, you want to talk about the ZMPC? Invoices?
There are invoices outstanding.
Yeah.
So I think in speaking to Worldwide, obviously they're waiting for the 259,000 to then pay the next invoice. Right. So they're waiting for reimbursement from FDOT, just like we do, to try to minimize the amount of tax. Obviously, you can't get reimbursed from FDOT until obviously the invoice is paid. So as I said, we have 259,000 sitting in the account, and we'll go to them tomorrow. They will pay the next invoice. And so I believe that, yes, they've gotten a few invoices behind because of the timing, because of the time it's taken to get the reimbursement, things like that. But
You talked to them today.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll continue to stay in touch with them. And ZPMC understands. I mean, obviously they have to, keep the pressure on, but they understand. They know we're working on it.
Okay, it's not a government thing.
Right.
All right. May I continue?
Well, that's all I have on the tonnage report. I don't know if you have anything else on the agenda for me right now.
I do.
Okay.
We had someone asked about the fabric warehouse. We're not going to approve that tonight.
No, we're not ready to we expect to have that ready for your final approval at the next meeting.
Okay, and remember, we asked that you make sure you get permitting and everything.
Yes, well,
with that.
Exactly, but the response to Commissioner Ross's question, oh, you're back, is that we simply don't have an approved building yet. And once it's approved, and before it's actually being manufactured, we have a set of approved plans. So I suppose we can start to vet them with the city building department. What was the other group that we need to visit, if I could ask? Technical review.
Yeah.
Technical review. Oh, is that part of the building department?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So yeah, we'll be doing that in due
Make
course.
sure you do that.
Of course.
We won't approve it unless it's done.
So you want us to start that process in advance?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Did the procurement thing all go through?
Yeah, I just have to get the language to Pat. But in the meantime, we've got the design plan, so I can submit that this week or beginning of next week to the building department. We'll get that process going. We're confident that'll be approved and streamlined because it's really identical design other than dimensions that they've already worked.
Okay, looking down my list here, we've already talked about the type of, I want to move in now to the port tariff. Let's talk about the tariff. It's time we get this thing approved. I talked to you today about it. You didn't have any problems with the additions?
Well, I looked a little more carefully at the additions, but I'll wait till you're ready for my comments.
I'm ready.
Okay.
What you think?
So you have harbor administration fee. Now that's something that Fernandina has never had.
I know, but it's something that, all the other ports charge. And it's a way for Oakland to have a little more income off the ships. I think it's it's good for us. I don't think it's gonna restrict you getting business. And I think most skippers agree to pay that at other ports, so why shouldn't we?
I really don't have any objection to it. I tend to agree with what you've said. The only question I have is code. How are you gonna invoice it to the vessels? Who's gonna collect it? Who's gonna manage it? To make sure that you collect it from every vessel. And,
Well, that would be your job. I mean,
is that what you want us to
you
do?
can give us the funds from that, you know, just,
So this would be on each vessel.
yeah. And I've listed like for up to 200 feet, $1.38 per call, $138 per call. Over 200 to $276 per call. That's the Jacksport rate. That's what they. I gave it to you last meeting.
Oh, you circulate a document.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think that's something that needs to be in the tariff.
Supposed to receive a red line of the whole document. It has a lot more language than just the pricing. And I think we were supposed to receive for the last meeting.
Hold on, let me finish with his comments about the tariff and then we can discuss it. Any other thing on there?
Vessel bunkering, again, I'm neutral. It's just that our experience is that the vessels arrange, the vessel agents arrange their own bunkering or refueling, and it's generally done by truck. And we don't have any hands in that equation. You allow the trucks to come in and fuel. So I don't, are you proposing that the port would charge a fee for bunker?
Well, if we handle it,
But we don't.
if we don't, then
Yeah.
there would be no fee.
Right, yeah, okay, so that one, I mean, that may be in other port tariffs, but my understanding would be that it's always arranged by the vessel or the agents. I mean, we have some folks in the room that could give us maybe some information on that between Robin and the captain back there, but it's up to you if you want.
You guys want to speak on that? Can you comment on it?
Yeah, that's what he said. We always handle that stuff.
Okay.
I don't think any.
I
Let's
never
go
got.
to the lectern and tell us your names, because we have someone taking our minutes.
Come on, you have to.
So if we're gonna consider what you say, we have to,
Thank you, Robin.
sorry about that.
I don't think any port authority.
You have to identify.
Give us your
Robin
name.
Bishop, North Florida Shipping.
Yeah.
No port authority gets involved in bunkering at all. Never had. Call Colonial, whoever. Show up. Family, it's the way of our operation. But
Okay,
that's it.
thank you. All right, the next thing would be the idle docket.
Yeah, I mean, as the operating agreement is written, I believe the current operating, the Port Authority can promulgate the tariffs and with the operator's consent. Our view is there's no reason to offer a discount for idle dockage. Dockage is dockage. Obviously, if you have working vessels on the dock, you don't have any room for idle dockage. If you don't have working vessels on a given day on the dock, you might take a vessel in for idle dockage, but why should they pay any less? Why not? But it's like a parking spot in New York City. It's $60 an hour. Whether it's a pickup truck that needs work on the motor or whether they're gonna drive it in, drive it out, it's $60 a day for that spot.
So if a ship is there and not getting service, that's what I thought of the idle docket was. What, they don't pay a different rate? You don't,
Well, that's correct. Idle dockage is meant to distinguish from dockage that while you're being stevedored, while vessel operation
Right.
conducted. The reason why some ports give a discounted rate for idle dockage, like I believe Jacksonville does, is because larger ports have certain docks available that are not set up for cargo operations. They may not have cranes on them, but you can park a vessel there, which is idle. They incentivize those docks to be used by providing a less than a full-blown cargo fit dock, We have 1,200 feet. We have 2 berths, very limited. We're never gonna, favor or accept an idle dockage unless there's no other vessels that day. But if we do accept it, it's still a fully fit out cargo worthy dock. They should pay that price. That's
Right.
all.
All right, very good. Barge docket rate, adopted rate. Do we even need to?
My view is no, because same theory. If it's a 300-foot barge or a 500-foot ship, it's 500 feet, it's 300 feet, it should be the same rate.
All right, security fee, how much revenue are we getting for security on every vessel? Is the security that we receive less than what we pay for?
For sure, that's for sure. I mean, because if you're saying what we pay for security or what we pay on behalf of OPA for security every month, you couldn't possibly recoup all of it. It's an attempt to recoup something towards that, continuous 24/7 security obligation.
So we don't get what security actually cost us.
No, it's not a 1-for-1. You don't have specific additional security for each vessel. You have the secure premises and you have procedures that the vessel is required and people who attend the vessel come in to have proper credentials, et cetera. So, I mean, the security should be as much as, the market could bear, because it's never going to make you whole 100%, not even close, but it's a good way to recover some security expense.
Okay.
So that could be whatever you guys, I think you propose a figure on that, and we're fine, we're raising it, it should be raised.
All right, electric.
We have no electrical capability or capacity at the
We don't
dock.
provide any electric. What about in the future?
Well, let me just
Yeah,
say,
we can go back and.
yeah, you could
put it in
amend
if
it,
we need
right,
to.
that's right.
We don't provide any electric to any ship.
Not to the ships. The only electric that we potentially could provide is those refrigerated containers I mentioned. When they plug in, it's typical to charge them either a daily electricity rate that could be in a tariff or a metered rate. But the problem with our 45 reefer plugs, they weren't set up with individual meters. So the only thing you could do is come up with a daily rate. And we could come up with a published daily rate.
Non-metered rate.
Yeah, exactly. Per day, per
Can we
container.
put that, what that rate is
Sure,
in the tariff?
sure we can.
And like I say, we'd like to have something in there about tugboat rental.
I'm not opposed to publishing the tugboat tariff rates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we need to debate that anymore. I wouldn't call it a rental because no one rents the tug. What they do is they request service for the tug,
Right, and that's added
which we provide to them and then charge them. So,
As I said, I'd like to know how much we get for that.
well, I thought you actually have our published letter. It's not a tariff yet because it's not included in the tariff. We can just put it in there.
Yes.
But the agents have a letter that we put out based on a few increments of length overall of the vessels, what the docking and undocking charges would be. And so that's what we would be. I think some of you have seen it before, but if not, yeah, let's just publish.
Okay, I think everybody's seen the other rates that are proposed. Any question about any of them? Is everybody happy with the tariff at this point? Now, I want to make it clear that at any time we can go back and adjust this. Sure. That's normal. If we need to adjust it, we will. Cost of everything goes up, we have to adjust. So, I'd like a motion to approve the tariff, and then we can discuss anything further you want to discuss. Motion to approve the tariff. Right here, second. Motion made and seconded to approve the tariff that we just discussed. Any further discussion?
asked for a red line from full care. Told you who this applies to, when there are exceptions. So if this is just going to be inserted within the existing language, aspects of this may not make any sense. Our tariff is not a single page spreadsheet.
No, it's not. It's pretty lengthy.
Right. So why didn't we get a red line at the tariff, like we've asked for 2 months?
Discussing it.
Didn't we say the last meeting? I mean, it's in the minutes that we looked at tonight and wrote about.
I'm not exactly sure this is exactly how Chairman Ford wants to do it. My understanding was we published this simplified tariff, basically numbers and not a lot of verbiage in lieu of the old tariff. If you want to see what came out, you can just read this against the old tariff. Or if maybe I'm wrong, if you want us to insert these new numbers into the body of the old tariff, then that's where the red line would come in to delete provisions. But if you want to just publish a new tariff that's kind of a clean type of Jacksonville format tariff, it's a few pages, as far as I know, right? It's not that 40 pages of verbiage. So however the board would like us to do
Make
it.
everyone happy with the, in the old tariff, because that's, will still be part of this. I assume, is that what we're doing? We're adding this into the old tariff?
I think what we're doing is we're revising the old tariff and then we have to republish it as a new tariff. But that doesn't mean we can't delete a lot of pages of old boilerplate that are sort of antiquated.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm gonna put this on hold for 1 more month. I don't want to do that, but we'll think just to keep everybody happy. If you go in there and redline whatever is coming out, insert this for the changes, and then get it back to us next month, I think we'll move.
Well, that's fine, but maybe you could improve the rates and we can start to indoctrinate folks to the new rates, or I don't know what's the best way to do it. Public
Yeah,
rate.
because these rates are a lot different than the old tariff.
Yeah. All right, so we'll do a comprehensive rewrite.
I think you need to go ahead and start, yeah, we're leaving revenues if we don't.
We asked for this last month, and when we asked for it last month, we cited that we had asked for it the previous month. We've also been talking about revising our tariff for, what, 2 years? So, I mean, I don't think we should approve part of it and then come back with a red line document and then somehow rework it. It doesn't make any sense to me, because how would we know who this applies to? I think it leaves it somewhat ambiguous. The whole point of the tariff,
It applies to everybody.
it should, but Mr. Iguchi has told us that the tariff we have currently doesn't actually apply, that he has his own scheme for how he applies rates.
And that's the rates right here.
No, he just sat there and said he doesn't charge the tariff rates, he has his own scheme for it.
That's not what I said.
I didn't think I heard that.
It's well known, it's industry practice that you can negotiate service agreements with customers and not with their, and in those cases, the tariff doesn't apply. The tariff applies to someone who comes out of the blue and says, I need to make a call, if you can accommodate me, and they can look at your tariff and they can see what the rates are before they show up at the dock.
Like going to a hotel where you negotiate, staying there weekly for your.
So the tariffs are important. They're used whenever they're applicable, but they're not applicable in every case. But we should raise them. And I guess your red line concept, while it sounds great, we don't have actually a red line because no one in my staff has a Word version of your tariff document. And I have a funny feeling no one in open staff has a red line, has a Word version because it's such an old document. So it shouldn't fall upon us to type it, retype it all over again, unless that's what you task us to do. Then we'll have to just basically recreate a new tariff, or have someone type that entire old tariff into a Word document and then redline it for it.
Now, you even said about just wiping the old one out and putting a new one in.
That's one possibility.
Roseanne, can you pull up our existing tariff, please? It's on the website. If you just Google OPA tariff, it's the first result. It's 46 pages. Just so we understand what we're talking about.
It was, rewritten in 2016.
The rates were probably revised.
The version.
That was, that's what I have is effective January 1st, 2016. That's,
Right, and when you click on the website, it's on the website.
Can you put it up on? the screen?
yeah, if you could give me 1 minute.
Would you compare the rates in the spreadsheet to what's in our posted tariff to identify where the changes will be?
I didn't know.
It seems like cost plus a certain percentage, or it discusses,
Or what?
when you look at the original document, which is the
What is
46
that?
page
Sorry.
document. So for this one example, it's cargo handling by rail, rail cars placing, loading, and unloading. And it has a per piece percentage. Yes, this is is that a amendment?
This looks like an amendment.
That's what I have.
But that's not what's on our website.
Yeah. It's 12 page.
Is that posted online? Or something?
No, that's from my file.
But it has to be posted to be valid. So. So I think we could do, I think the tariff is important. I think we should have something that reflects the changes online. If this applies, then if this was adopted and voted on by the board, I think we should maybe schedule.
2016.
Yeah, some of the pages so you want to be biased.
Yeah, and this is what Kinder Morgan brought to us in December of that year, and it's what we approved. This was the last change.
But each page in the tariff states when it was revised at the bottom.
Right.
That tells me that Kinder Morgan may have had this on a master file. And they were able to just make the adjustments and reissue it. We never got that. from them.
So that's just one of the revisions.
It's 12 pages.
Okay,
Yeah, the
let me,
document on the website should reflect that.
download the web.
So that's with a PDF, by the way. At least I can. I think the lawyers now have tools that they can use to open a PDF and convert it.
Is that true, Patrick?
This lawyer.
Yeah.
Adobe fee.
I could too if I paid for
Yeah, right.
Maybe we can convert this.
I was gonna suggest that we can get the full tariff. We'll have to see if this is incorporated or if it's still separate, and maybe Patrick's office could turn it into a Word document, then we can work together.
these rates that you gave us then, are you charging those already?
No. Yeah,
You can't.
no. We came up with that, if you remember, based on a comparison that the RS&H did for us. Dave Kaufman and company. They did a quick survey for you to lay out our competitive ports. You gave it to me, that's what we used to sort of take, kind of a competitive rate, but not higher than anybody else around us. That's how these numbers that we proposed to you were developed.
So if we approve what you've given to us as the new rates, we can start charging that now.
We could, and we tried to make it so it's not a lot of verbiage, but you can see what it applies to. I think it's functional, good enough, at least for the time being, on these rates that we come up every day, the main rates that come up.
If we approve this, so you can go ahead and start charging those rates and then ask you to redline the other, insert this in there, and then come back and show us.
So what we'll do then is if you want us to go this way, if you approve the rates, we'll issue that as a tariff amendment. Oh, sorry. We'll go back to the document and with Patrick's help, create a master file of the old tariff, and then we'll redline it to what we think is appropriate language to stay in with the new rates. We'll redline what we think should come out, and we'll distribute it to everyone. Is that a good plan?
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I withdraw that motion. I'll withdraw. Okay, so now let's make a new motion to approve these rates and then come back next month with a red line version and insert these new rates in there and we can see the whole document. And we have to make any adjustments. Anybody have any change that? But we're going to get the rates.
Okay, before we finalize the motion, we've had lots of discussion. I would just like to say, I think we should vote on a tariff. We shouldn't vote on piecemeal. So if he's already said he's not charging what's posted in our tariff, this process is to amend what is posted. So this is not an emergency and it hasn't been treated like an emergency by Mr. Lucci until now, when he's pressing you to approve these rates.
Okay, so I
We
know.
didn't come to this meeting prepared to finalize this because he hasn't provided the red line he's promised us for 3 months.
Okay, so there's no motion on the floor right now, so tell me what you want to do.
I think we should wait till the next meeting when we have a red line of the document. I mean, I don't have a specific objection with the rates. We've talked about them multiple times, but when we looked at them before, we said we needed to see the whole document red line so we could do the process correctly.
Okay, if we can do that in the next 30 days, we'll do that, if everybody agrees to that. So, Mr. Franklin, you hear that? He on Zoom or what?
Yes, on Zoom.
You talking to me?
Yes, sir.
Now, there's a motion on the floor to accept the tariff and to bring a red line in, right?
Could you repeat your question?
Withdrawn,
It's been withdrawn.
and we're going to wait
Okay,
next month to get a red line version of the new tariff.
Did you hear that?
okay.
We're gonna wait.
Yes, I heard that.
Are you okay
Yes,
with
next
that?
month. Yes.
Okay. All right, so that's what we'll do then. If you can get with Patrick.
Yeah.
and,
Well, the first step, I would ask, when Rosanna has a chance, find the original full tariff document as well as this. Send these two.
I've got a copy of it at home, so.
Well, I do too. Yeah, I mean, I guess you want me to just scan, make a new PDF and scan it to Patrick.
It's posted,
Got it.
it's posted on.
Oh, it's on the web, you have it, okay.
Mhm.
So if I can get that back from Word,
Sent to my paralegal.
All right, we're gonna get that back, we'll get
So
started.
are you saying you don't have the tariff? You don't have a copy of the tariff?
I have
It's posted on
paper
the website.
copies of the tariff. I don't have it in a Word document that I could read on. It's one of the many things we didn't have when we took over this place. Just don't have it.
So we agree that next month, this is gonna get approved one way or the other, if you get that red line to us and get everything incorporated. Let's get this thing started.
Yes,
I'm tired of talking about
me too. Fair enough.
it. All right,
Chairman Floyd, just to confirm, you want this on next month's agenda because we're going
oh,
to have,
absolutely.
we're going to have a meeting in 2 weeks.
What?
You want to,
Oh, that's the next meeting day?
Yeah.
2 weeks? Yeah,
They're
they're-
doing an emergency meeting.
no, I'm not talking about the first of April.
okay,
Meeting in April.
okay,
That'll give everybody time. I don't want to do it in a special meeting.
okay.
Let's make sure everybody's got time to get this done. You want to keep having long agendas like this? Sitting here for 9 o'clock? Okay, we got that settled. Now let's move on. What we got next here? Couple things that I want to bring up while the port operator is up. Warehouse cleanup. I've gone by a couple of times since our last, not more than a couple of times since our last meeting. I went 3 times this week and looked around to make sure everything was clean, everything, there was no trash or anything that I could see. The warehouse has been cleaned up.
Looks pretty good.
It looks good. Let's keep it that way.
Did a couple drive-bys myself, pretty good.
Yes. Now, I went today, as a matter of fact, and I'll talk about a problem today that I saw. Escambia traffic. Talked about trucks coming down Escambia, and we found out why that happened. Apparently, the GPS that the truckers have, when we gave them the address, it led them to Escambia. And that's why they were coming down Escambia instead of coming down Dade Street, but that's been corrected.
That's correct.
Okay,
We issued the new addresses that bring you right to the truck gate and or the security gate to all the truckers.
now, the next thing I've talked to Chris about today, because when I went by there today, we had trucks queuing in the regular lanes of Dade Street and not pulling off to that side area where they're supposed to sit and wait till they can come in the gate. And exiting was okay, but when I was exiting, there were other cars coming in behind those trucks and they couldn't get around until I moved, and then they had to go around the trucks. So make sure that gets taken care of, and I know you got a way to address that.
Yes.
You tell us how that's
Yeah,
done.
you said it was 3 trucks.
3.
And that they weren't pulled all the way up to the gate. They were stopped sort of.
There was 1 truck at the scales and then 3 other trucks behind that, and they were in the road.
We're gonna have to increase the surveillance out there and do hourly patrol for the security guards.
Please do that. I don't want that to happen again.
We will.
At our joint meeting with the city, we said we would talk about queuing on site. That keeps coming up. Is that viable?
I don't know where we would queue off-site unless you've got someplace to do that. That's something that the master plan is gonna have to figure out for us. They're gonna help us with that. I think it's something we need to do.
So the Friendly Road location was one they looked at before. Would
Is there
that work?
any way we can queue trucks out there? And then, I don't know how.
If I was a truck driver, I wouldn't want to do that.
Forget it, they'll just go on to the next project. But, you know, the queuing, at least right now, on day in and day out, and I'm the only one, that's literally there every single day, Friday in the morning, maybe I'll go out to a meeting, drive back, go home at night. I rarely see more than 2 or 3 trucks, other than the truck that's inside the gate on the scale. I have not seen it back up to 8th Avenue, to 8th Street in months. So I'm not sure where this perception of truck queuing issue. What we do if the trucks do back up is we accelerate pulling them into the terminal.
Right.
And we
With the drive-ins, we loop them around inside, and then they go back out on Second Street gate to queue up for the loading dock. So we are managing the queuing. And I don't see, I mean, I can tell you, day in and day out, for the most part of each and every day, no streets are being blocked, and there's no truck queuing issue per se. The only queuing issue you have in our neighborhood, which I consider it my neighborhood, because I spend most of my waking hours there, is the cars that queue up for pickup of St. Michael's School at 3 o'clock, which winds around each block and down Date. I mean, it's incredible. For a while, I used to think they were funeral processions, because I might not see them every day, but now I know what they are. So we do everything we can to manage the queuing. At the moment, we're fortunate that the majority of our cargoes rail in or rail out from the ships. And the idea of a longer term solution to sort of, additional truck queuing beyond what Dade Street can comfortably accommodate with that truck lane, which is about half of Dade Street widens out. That's the solution that we need to come up with through the master planning process. To me, the potential would be to loop around on Escambia and then feed them onto Dade as there's room. Only because there's less residents on Escambia, but there's still residents there. So that was a popular idea. So we really have, I mean, I'm at a loss. You just don't have any excess square footage in the neighborhood to really actually the gym.
So do you have any suggestions to the, I mean, we have David here. So do you have any suggestions to him other than you would bring traffic along Escambia, or is there software that improves this, like messaging with the trucks to try to optimize when they arrive?
The trucks, you get trucks from all over the place. You had that sounds like a great high-tech futuristic solution, but only trucks that would have, I'm not familiar with such software, but I'm assuming there might be something. Again, for right now in the interim short-term future here, we don't have a truck queuing problem. That's not manageable with the real estate. The longer-term fix and anticipating growth, the only folks I think that can help us figure that out is the master planners. And that's stuff that they specialize in. They may have techniques, they may have ways to model queues that I'm not familiar with myself, that they can introduce into the whole planning process with the workshops and all that.
Well, I would like to hear some of your suggestions on the issue, just because it comes up over and over. The public brings it up almost every meeting. We hear from the public on the issue. We acknowledge it when we have the joint meeting with the city. And you're you're in this business, you're the expert. And so if you have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
You've
mean.
never treated me that way before, but I'll take that.
So if you're, this is your profession, we want to hear your ideas on this that would work with what you do. Because for us to come up with an idea and impose it on you, we don't know whether or not it would be welcomed.
Right. I appreciate that, and we are thinking about possible fixes. I haven't come up with anything yet that I think is viable. We'll have input with master planners, of course, but if we had day in and day out, hours long, truck queues back to 8th Street, then I would be with my hair on fire trying to find that solution. At the moment, it's just not anywhere near that level of urgency, but in terms of planning, yes, we have to.
Some of the software solutions we've heard of are less than $20,000 investment.
Share with me. I have no idea what.
We've had members of the public that came up who have worked in logistics, and this was back probably 4 meetings ago, 4 regular meetings ago. So I wouldn't hold anybody remembering it, but we had a member of the public who lives in the neighborhood adjacent to the port, and he said that he was aware of these types of software. He didn't know if they were any good. But I mean, I think we should at least start the process on looking into it, because it keeps coming up.
I know the individual.
I think that's something Reynolds Smith and Hill could probably help us with when we get the master plan started back.
But we'll certainly take input from anyone that wishes to offer. I would point out, we still have not received a single email from the community on the email address, ourcommunity@worldwideterminals.com. I'm starting to take it personally. No,
Well-
they could drop us a note and just say, hi, guys, how
While
are you?
you're talking about that, I went on that today. That's a nice site. It shows videos of the workers unloading ships and putting it in the warehouse. And then it has a place for input to notify you of any problems or suggestions.
Yeah.
And you've got nothing. Is there?
A lot of people signing up little by little.
What we
You signed
need-
up. I heard that you signed up.
Yes, I did.
I got a
What
call.
we need to do is get that on our website.
Yeah.
Yes,
On
I
our
spoke to
website.
our,
Get that on there.
I can try.
Yeah,
Rosanna, I think if the link is just www.worldwideterminals.com is our website.
Mhm.
right.
But I'm not sure if that connects you to our community or if it's on the website, but we'll work with Rosanna.
Okay, good. Let's not get that on the website so people.
We have drone shots of the ships.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great videos.
You look at it.
I like it, it looks good.
Yeah.
I like that link also, because I want to put that on my page.
Yeah.
I'm a monitor, that actually went up nice.
So if someone sends you a message to that, are we gonna get access to any of those messages? Are they, I mean, I would say they're public records. Are you gonna put a public records disclosure on there that if you contact this contractor for public business, it becomes a public record?
Quite honestly, I didn't even think about that.
Mhm.
Maybe I should check with council if we should do that, if we need to do it. Is it a public record? Would there be anything on there that we wouldn't want to produce?
So,
These are
I mean, I
questions.
could see it coming up if someone makes a complaint and then you don't get the email and you say, I didn't get the message. They say, I sent the message, right? And so to validate what is coming and going.
I'm open to suggestions.
Okay. All right, we'll work on that. Let's move on.
So it would be a public record then, you're in agreement?
I'm no expert in what's a public record. I certainly don't have.
It would definitely be a public record. There's no question about that. So
Okay, so we're mindful now that
make sure you put
there's
this,
a public record. So there's a disclosure we have to put.
there should be,
Patrick,
and Patrick can help with you on that.
when you get a chance. Thank you.
Okay, what we're talking about the two ships that were at the port, and those are both plywood ships.
Yes.
And I know you're working hard to get them unloaded. I know the rain may hamper you.
And we unfortunately got interrupted this
Yeah,
year.
you got interrupted today. We've got to remember, Summers Isle comes in when, the next one is Friday.
Oh, yeah, I'm very well aware of this.
You have to make sure.
Talking with Rod.
We've got to make sure they can get to the dock and get their stuff loaded and get it out of here. How are we gonna do that if those ships are still there?
Well, the plan is to finish the one ship, so we can get out in time to get Robin in.
The one on the south end.
Yeah.
And if that can happen, Robin, are you okay with that? Right,
I'm hopeful.
okay,
We're both optimistic and we're.
But y'all talked about it.
Oh, of course. I mean, he's our oldest and most,
absolutely. And
Dear
I'm
client.
enjoying that
there's
relationship.
constant communication. Rob was at the port today. His team is always at the port with us.
Okay,
We
good.
have excellent communication.
Keep us informed.
Yes, sir.
And Robin, call me if you need me.
All right, sure.
I want to let everybody know that we lost a lighting grant. It's the interior, exterior?
It's either,
Yeah. All right, cruise ship information, the cruise,
Any more background on the lighting ring?
yeah, it expired February 28th.
What was it originally for?
Lighting,
yeah, well,
exterior lighting, I believe. it's
there's
exterior.
lighting improvements.
Yeah.
We have.
But
some
we have another
expenses.
lighting grant.
We have 120 days to submit expenses, so we have some expenses
Yeah.
we're gonna submit.
Right. Okay,
So was it originally for upgrades?
Yes,
Okay, it wasn't like a wholesale, like
No.
replacement of lighting?
no, we were hoping to do some underground cabling work that needs to be done, which is high ticket items, I'll do that, but we just haven't been able to.
but
get
we have
it.
another grant where we can do some of that.
Yes,
The lighting grant. Okay, moving on to cruise ship, the cruise ships have stopped, at least at our facility. A cruise ship did come in this week. They anchored off the
They were not,
No,
not part of
Yes,
this.
we have nothing to do
They
with
anchored
that.
in the river.
they're coming anyway, like I
Right,
said
yeah.
last meeting. They're coming anyway. they anchored off the city.
No, they have to be anchored on the dock. If you look at.
Oh, they're
today's
docking.
paper, yeah, the docking drama in today's, it shows the cruise ship in the river on anchor and our two cargo ships.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah,
But now-
that was yesterday. She was in yesterday, March 8th. And she used the Amelia River Cruises to tender, or tendering is a formal word for shuttling.
Well, that's what I mean. They were anchored off,
Yeah, and they tendered, the people were tendered in on these, you
Right.
know,
and then they used the shuttle to tender them in.
over to the.
They really don't want to do that, but that's.
It's not the safest way to do it. And
Yeah.
of course, I know that only 50 people or so, I think, use that. Most of these are, you know, fairly, you know, successful retirees and senior citizens. At least 150 got off the vessel when it was at our dock, that first call in February. So
Well, as
the
I,
city is losing out in my view.
as I was quoted in the paper today, I did say that, the negotiation with West Rock is not over. We're still going to work with them and see what it's going to take for us to be able to use that. What I need to ask of you,
Mhm.
and I'm making a formal request tonight, is for you to get us the information of how much you're taking in on those cruise ships. You've already been asked by the news.
Sure. Sure. In fact, we have to provide it to Patrick as a part of our response.
Okay, and I'm gonna let Patrick take care of that and issue a letter of a request, formal request, so we can get what information we need, because we want to know how much we're making off those cruise ships.
Sure.
Did you charge the cruise ship, this week?
No, we have nothing to do with it. We can't charge them for anchoring in the river.
They're not in our
They
area.
don't have to ask our permission, and they didn't.
All right,
We did lose. This is the third of the 6 spring calls. We lost the second call to Canaveral, Port Canaveral. And I think it was mainly because Mr. McCarthy, who runs the tenders, the cruise boats, didn't have any capacity to provide tendering last week, 2 weeks ago. This one, they've declared obviously their strong desire to continue to come to Fernandina under less than ideal circumstances, and they anchored in the river and they hired the tendering service. So on their own, they did that. I wasn't even aware until I came to work and saw the ship there.
all right. Any other questions or concerns for Chris? All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna have 2 hours now. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Ready.
Meeting comes back to order. All right, let's talk about some unfinished business. Move on this agenda. We're about halfway through now. All right. Next thing I have is under unfinished business. Is that what we are? Is the executive director RFQ. You all received a copy of that. Patrick sent it out. It's up and on the screen. Anybody got any questions about it? If you had questions, you should have gotten back to Patrick as he requested and sent it out. I'd like to get approval for this so we can get it advertised.
One thing I wanted to see what y'all thought about is extending the deadline just because we're already in March.
Yeah, it was for April.
And we ended up extending the other one.
We do have a 90-day point today, kind of thing.
I'm not in favor of that. I think April 1st, that's almost 3 weeks from now.
Well, it's 3 weeks from tonight, but when can we get it put out?
Tomorrow, if I get the final
Yeah.
draft.
Can be put out tomorrow.
I just think 30 days is kind of the standard of what we would expect to be able to get some good responses and get awareness out there, word of mouth spreads. And we have 2 meetings a month, so we could set it for the special meeting agenda if we needed to, which those agendas seem to be running a bit lighter than our regular meetings.
So what would you want the deadline to be?
When is our next special meeting after?
We have a meeting in 2 weeks.
We have
It
one on
doesn't-
our first one in April is late because of the calendar. So we've got one on March 23rd and our first one is April 13th.
Our first regular meeting, right, is April 13th, and then the 27th is our special meeting.
So if you did it due on the 15th, then you could look at them on the 26th.
Next day.
Yeah.
Perfect tax use things right here.
Yes.
Yeah,
Actually, no, those will be done.
I don't have a problem with that. If somebody wants to make a motion with that change, we can get it, but
Could you repeat that change, please?
it'll be
We're gonna change no later than April 1 to no later than April 15.
Right.
I'll make a motion to extend that from April 1st to April 15th. And then with that amendment, accept.
Motion made and seconded to approve the amended executive director. RFQ. And to the April 15th. Any further discussion? You hear that, Commissioner Franklin?
Yes, I heard it.
Seconded to approve the
Here, Commissioner Franklin,
Yes,
did you hear that?
yes, I heard it. Mhm.
Okay,
okay,
Extended to April the 15th.
right. All in
Correct.
favor, signify by saying aye.
what's your vote, Commissioner Franklin?
Ah,
Thank you.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously. All right, get that put out tomorrow. All right, very good. All right, I want to talk a minute about the master plan. We have delayed this master plan now for a while. We have the ability to pay our share of the master plan. Pierre, you want to explain this, what, right now we have so much that we can do our 50-50 split for with FDOT.
We have $115,000
Right,
FDOT grant for the master plan. It's a 50-50 match. So we're submitting the first $30,000, working on the first reimbursement. We'll get back $15,000 of that. Obviously, spend forward on master plan, we'll have up to $115,000 reimbursed for 50% of work.
right. So I feel like with the money we have coming in right now, as long as we don't have a lot of maintenance stuff, we have to do something with, that we can start the master plan back up again and use our funds that we get reimbursed for to supplement our portion of the grant. And I would like to, your opinion, and would like to get started, but I think it's important that we continue and we get this done. And there may be some point where we can use the, I don't want to do another RFQ because I've been told, I've talked to Reynolds Smith and Hill, they may not even reapply. And I don't want to go through that again. They've done an awful lot of work to get this moving. They've talked to a lot of people and I don't want to start over. So I'm not willing to put it back out for bid. If in the end, we end up having to pay money that we don't have, or if we get audited and have to pay back some, then we have other options to be able to take care of those funds. I'm not going to go into what those options are. I'll talk to Pierre about it. Talk to Patrick about it. I think it's just imperative that we continue with the master plan and get this thing done. I think it can only help us if there's a lot of questions that they can help us answer that we've talked about tonight. So I think it's important we go ahead and get them started again. And I'd like a vote of confidence for that.
So are we moving forward with the existing contracts?
Yes.
And so there were two things that we asked for to be included in that contract that they pushed back on. So one was, and I don't have it here, but one was the amount they're charging us for like the market info, which is more like boilerplate macroeconomic factors. giving you sort of the lay
You
of the
lost
land.
me already. I don't know where you're
Yeah, so
going.
when you do a master planning process, you have like the first part of the, and Dave, you know, feel free to step. up
David,
to
would
the
you
mic.
come up for a minute? Maybe you can help us with this.
You were here for that part of the meeting, but it was the like market analysis, and I asked, they go back and look at like what, how much they're charging us for that, because it was a full third of the total cost. And I said, you know, to the extent that this is sort of like macro issues, could you help us here to sort of pare that down? And the other thing I asked for was an additional meeting, a public meeting. And we ended up getting 2 in there, but we wanted 3. We really wanted 3. And I think given the way things are right now, I think that additional meeting, even if the first meeting they were talking about was a very small scale meeting. They were talking about holding it in a very small restaurant, right? So I would like to have that additional opportunity for the feedback, because I think that that's kind of where we want to get to, is a positive public perception locally, you know, and working with the neighborhood. So those were my 2 things that I thought were, you know, they didn't end up making it into the final agreement. I think they're important.
Well, just for David Kaufman, Technique Consulting, just for the record, I don't represent RSH, I'm a subconsultant to RSH on the agreement. So as it relates to the overall scope and the overall fee, that was something that RSH put together. I put in my share of it, but the rest of it, they developed. As it relates to the macroeconomics, yes, there is a lot of upfront analysis to put Fernandina in perspective in terms of what the opportunities are. It's far from just boilerplate. I mean, it's still tailored to the type of cargoes, the type of markets that Fernandina operates within. It's not going to be something that would also apply necessarily to Port Jacksonville, for example. So I don't know that there would be any change in fee. Again, that would be something that Dr. Martin would be responsible for. I'm certainly willing to talk with Justin about adding a 3rd meeting. I would assume that there would be some additional cost. I don't know what that cost would be. In terms of working it into the scope, working into the schedule, certainly we can do that. I don't know if additional fees.
Is it possible that we could do what we've already agreed to do if we need a 3rd meeting? After the first 2, we should look at it and say, well, maybe we need to have another meeting. We could put it in there at that time.
When we initially did the resolution authorized the agreement, we said if provided that, so it was contingent on the operator providing the local match. Now, not only do we not have that from the operator, we can't use the ARPA money to pay for it. And so I don't really know what we're trying to vote on right now, whether we're trying to figure out how to move our finances or whether we're reauthorizing something we don't think we got the authorization for initially. What exactly is this for?
What I'm asking for is a vote to say, let's put the plan back in. What do you call it? They suspended the plan for now. I want to lift that suspension so they can get started back and do what they agreed, and we agreed for them to do.
Did they ask for a vote?
I don't have, nobody asked for a vote.
Yeah, but I don't know whether the board took a vote to suspend it either. I think that was just a decision that when we came to the conclusion that there was a question about whether or not we was be able to pay with the scope, that RSH decided to suspend work on it until we knew that there wasn't.
I didn't vote in favor of the initial award because I didn't think we were doing the process right. I'm always very focused on process, and because process matters in government because it isn't your money, and so you have to follow the process. You do whatever you want when you're a private business. So within legal bounds. But so I am going to vote in favor of this, and the reason is that there's already been some process, and I don't think it is right to ask a company like RSH to go through that process and then not pay them, and not. I think that's wrong. So I will support it.
So let's get a motion. We don't need a motion. Go ahead.
Real quick, I think you can have a consensus to move forward with restart the contract. I think ultimately you will have to vote on how to pay for it. Because you originally voted how to pay for it one way.
Yeah.
And you're ultimately gonna have to change that. So when the time comes,
Right.
I think you're gonna have to revisit that as a board and affirmatively decide what it is you're doing.
Right. And
I
we
think-
will when that time.
I think by way of consensus, you can request that they recommence work with the existing contract.
And you're saying we have budgeted funds to cover?
With the money we're getting back right now, that we can cover that.
We have $116,000.
Yes.
And obviously, we'll have 15,000 from the state of Florida. We'll have 24,000 every 2 months for payroll. So
I think it can be done. And then at the end, if we don't have enough funds coming back. Bridge loan, we could do a bridge loan if we had to.
We're gonna take out a loan to do a
Um,
master plan?
I'm not saying we have to, I'm saying if they came back and said, you need to pay this money back, but they audited us, say this was not allowed, so.
I think, I think what Chairman Fuller said, we're going to submit this and try and get reimbursed from the.
Right.
So I mean, obviously, the ARPA grant gave us guidance. They didn't say we couldn't submit it. And so obviously we will submit it and that will, obviously, if they could go through under the ARPA grant, we have no problems. If it doesn't go through, or says cash flow, cash flow. I think what Chairman Fuller is saying is that even if we go through in the ARPA grant and then get audited, we have to pay it back. Again, that's several years down the line.
Right. Okay.
I mean, after that, now I thought that money was, part of that was supposed to pay court workers too. I mean, how many which ways are we spending the same money?
Obviously, you can't spend it. You know, there's only so much money. Absolutely.
And so the invoice we got for 30,000, that's just a progress payment. Does that reflect what like the hours they've spent? That's the time already invested.
So that invoice has been paid.
Yeah.
There's an invoice for $70,000 outstanding. Wait to be paid for that.
And that's for work performed. It's not
Yes.
just, okay. But we haven't really gotten any work products or had any meetings, but it's just advanced work or what?
Yeah, so various work meetings that we've had with city representatives, economic development officials, other folks in the community, doing some debate analysis, gathering data, reports.
Okay.
all the additional work.
As chairman, I'm gonna direct you to get us started back with the master plan unless I hear an objection from anyone. We'll just move on with it and whatever bridge we have to cross later, we'll do that. We'll figure out someone. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we've unfinished business. We've talked about the bylaws. Patrick's still gonna work on that for us. Public record policy, that too. Future joint meeting with the city of Fernandina. They're gonna let us know when they want to have another meeting. It's probably gonna be May or June, I think. That's what I heard. All right, a big item here. Administrative office manager position. Rosanna, you have anything you want to say about this?
Well, I invited 3 applicants and just one showed up tonight, Miss Denise. So
We appreciate that.
if you would like to ask her questions, I spoke to you about possibly staying on because there's a lot to do, a lot to learn, And I'm not available until after 5. And so I conveyed to you my concern that I don't want I don't want to set up the replacement to fail because of lack of training. So ultimately, it's the board's decision. Obviously, Ms. Denise is here. She's vying for the position.
Let me ask you, are you gonna stay with the job you just took?
Obviously, if I stay with OPA, I will need to quit the other job because I can't do both.
So what do you want to do?
If I stay, maybe we could do a contract negotiable every year. Just
We
like,
did that
I guess,
already.
with like Patrick's contract and Pierre's contract,
I thought we did that already.
not my contract.
You have an employment agreement,
Yeah.
Right,
which
Right.
defines your hourly rate. So
negotiable.
do we
every
renew
year.
it every year?
Yeah.
I did not,
Don't
Yep.
remember.
With Barb, we used to.
Yeah, we do that. We do
But
it
she
every
was
year.
a contractor. So I said, when we put Rosanna on payroll, she has an employment agreement. It doesn't, the employment agreement, I don't know that I'll have to, I don't know that it ends, it's a 1 year, it's not a 1 year employment agreement. It's just an employment agreement. Here's the rate.
What we've asked from the ARPA funds includes her. Yes. So do we need a contract? Because we renew every year anyway. Was that okay? Would be okay with you?
yes.
So you want to stay?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, because like I said, there's a lot. I'm working with Pierre with the COVID funds and the accounts payables. We need to really straighten that out. And we're waiting for the COVID funds. And yeah, it's the board's decision because Miss Denise is here and she was gracious enough to show up, and she showed up at the last meeting as well.
I don't know after sitting in on 2 meetings if she's to be interested or not after what she's heard. I agree that changing right now would not be good for us. You've got the experience, you know what to do and when to do it. You get everything done, and you can go back and if you quit your other job and come back here, you could be doing the minutes. We wouldn't have these problems, and we wouldn't have to ask Patrick's young lady to do that for us. And things will kind of get back to normal.
About the health insurance issue.
Yeah,
That's
that's why I wanted to be renegotiated every year.
health insurance, I know she needs.
Well, you mean for higher, like at the end of your employment agreement now, you would say, let's look at it and see if you have the money to pay me a little more. And with the COVID funds right now, we probably would.
So would we be able to afford health insurance?
No, there's no way. And I think
Yeah.
you know that, don't
Yeah.
you? And you're okay with that.
And that's why I sought another employment
Right.
with medical.
So you would keep your other job as well?
No,
No.
no,
No, this would be
No.
her full-time
So
job.
it was about 800 for insurance monthly, right?
correct.
So it's 9,600 a year.
It's actually with her and her husband, it'd be like $1,200.
No, well, my husband will not be a factor. It's just for me.
Well, let's look at it if we decide to do this and keep her, look at it at the end of the agreement that we have with her now and see if we have any extra money to pay for some of her insurance.
So I also wanted to say, I support keeping you on, and we've had conversations about this, about the ARPA money and using it to improve your pay rate, because that is what it's supposed to be for. And that it's supposed to be used to retain employees, so I think that's a good use for it. I wanted to say to Denise that the few conversations that we've had, that you come across very well, very professionally. And the last time that we went through this process with applicants, we circulated our second choice, and she ended up getting another job, and then our first choice got another job. And so we went through this whole process, and Rosanna could tell you she went through the same sort of awkward type onboarding thing. But the top two choice candidates both were employed in a very short period of time. And so if, with your permission, I would like to share your resume with the chamber, with Regina Duncan at the chamber, if you would allow me to do so.
And I certainly appreciate, and I hate for you not to be able to get this position if you were the only one that applied or the only one that looked at it. But you understand what we're faced with here. Somebody with experience, somebody's been doing the job for a couple of years now. I just think it's better for us if you want to say to people. But we will all help you find something else. And with your resume, I don't think you're gonna have a problem. I wish we could have done something.
Mr. Chairman. Chairman.
Super job. Go forward. Any objection to that? Welcome back again.
Do you want to hear Commissioner Franklin's?
Of course we do. Mr. Franklin, what do you
Chairman.
say?
We advertised for this job, but we advertised it in the papers and we put it out, and we got 3 applications for it, and one of them has showed up tonight. And Ms. Rosanna has done a good job, very good job, but this is the second or third time that she's has agreed to quit on us and go to another employment because of different reasons and stuff. This lady, we should vote on her one way or the other, either accept her or not to accept her. The position was open, and this lady she deserved to be voted on. And Miss Rosanna does a good job, but like I said, this is about the third time that she has quit on us.
We all understood why she was leaving, but now she wants to stay, and I'm all in favor of allowing her to stay. And I don't think we need to vote on that. I think we just need to continue with her employment. We need to vote on it. I don't think so. But I'm willing to accept any kind of motion to do that. Hearing none.
It's the board's decision. I
know it
will
is.
go with,
I know it is.
and I
Don't have
will.
to worry about that. We've said we'd like to keep you because of your experience and knowing what you're doing, the great job you've done so far. I hope this time is the last time that you'll stay on with us for as long as you can.
So I do tend to agree with Commissioner Franklin about advertising for positions, just to put our feelers out there.
Yeah.
But I don't think that we should do Ms. Denise the discourtesy of voting her down because she doesn't deserve that.
No, I don't think we should do that either. I totally agree.
I agree.
Because that's exactly what we do.
Right.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Denise. We really
you, Denise.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
You don't have,
Don't mind, I think I'm good.
okay,
Call him tonight.
I don't blame you.
Okay.
I wish I could. Thank you, though.
You're welcome.
Stay in touch. Okay, Rosanna, you're back on.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, board.
Big headache off my mind. Let's move on to new business quickly. Future meetings. I've given you several locations and I'd like to do some of those It's been a long time since we've gone to the other side of the county to have our meetings. We've done that twice. We went to Callahan one time and went to Hilliard one time. So I've thrown in those two and also Briceville. You know, they're part of our districts too. One of our commissioners represents Briceville. I have to talk to them. We've got a meeting there next week, is it? Next week, and I'll talk to them about it if they'll so desire. I think it'd be good to do one over there in City Hall in Fernandina and FSCJ. We still have that option. So if there's any one of those you don't want to meet at, let me know now. And then if that's okay, I'll get in touch with all these places and get the dates that we can't be here. And we'll move forward with that.
I like the idea of bouncing around. I think these people, the opportunity.
We represent the whole county. We need to do that.
I think we just need more opportunity for people to come and see what's going on.
Okay, so I'll probably get some of those set up and I'll get again with you the dates, because I know some of them have been taken off. The one in November, we could meet back here because it's after the election.
Right.
So, all right, I'll do that.
So, Patrick, you come a long way, and Rosanna, you come a long way. Here, do you have any objection to having a meeting, have meetings on the west side? Mr. Rigucci, you come from the island, or I don't know where you come from, actually. You're probably coming from the port.
No, the I'll
Straightforward.
I live right down the street from me.
But I have no objection to be interested to explore this government center area.
Most of our business is pertaining to the port and including staff. And I also come from the island, so I mean, I just think it's important to have some meetings on the west side. I also think it's important to have a meeting in the city of Fernandina, considering that's where our business is going to be.
I said that's one of the options, and I'll contact them and see if we can do that. But
And I'm admittedly biased because that's
I know
close
you
for
are.
me.
Chairman Fuller,
yes,
if none of those, or if those venues are not possible, should the board consider Zoom meeting?
well, we'll explore that. Let's
No.
exhaust these places first.
I don't think you can do
I don't either. You
a
can't vote.
Zoom quorum anymore. I actually just sent you an email about the agenda. We've got to take this language off the last page of the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay,
This executive order is expired
okay,
for the remote forum. It has to be in person.
Right.
okay.
So do we not have quorum tonight?
Okay, so I'll explore those possibilities and get back with you next meeting. All right, the FDOT meeting was scheduled for next week, but it's been moved again to March 16th. It's about the third time for this next meeting.
I think he moved it
It's
again.
22nd.
Well, not 16th, I'm sorry, the 22nd. Yeah. I had it on the agenda here for 16th, but yeah, it's been 4 o'clock. But, I hate it that late today because it interferes with other things, but that's okay. We'll get it done. All right, keep Nassau beautiful. You want to talk about that, Commissioner Cole?
And actually, I was told that sign was down, but the sign is up.
Still there?
Still there.
No, it's a new sign.
No, that's that may be the old sign and it was put back up because it says open. Would you like to adopt that road?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't know the
I think
first
it would
thing
be
about
better
how to
if
do it.
you adopt that road.
Sure.
Because you're other people, they can jump out and check it on a more often basis. Well, the information has been sent to you. Yes, sir. I'll follow up on that.
All right.
But if you'll sign that contract, that's all it is.
Okay, I just don't recall seeing it.
Okay, let me double check. I know I sent it to you.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Now, what does that mean, adopting the road? Does that mean he's gonna be responsible for cleaning or
Correct.
Nassau?
He'll be responsible for.
So Nassau Beautiful will not help with that at any time?
No, we would never have a cleanup day unless it got to be, so beyond, that's what, Keep Nassau Beautiful does. Now, we have partners that have adopted the roads, like,
Right.
give you an example, I don't know, part of the Amelia Parkway or, Amelia Parkway, for example.
Yeah.
Somebody has adopted that one. And if they don't fill it, then we ask for a volunteer day and we go in and take care
The
of it.
Lodge did that part with South Fletcher, but that's a
There you
state
go,
thing.
yeah.
Right, we were
We have
responsible
33 adopted partners, I understand.
We walked that road many times to clean up, but that was a state thing.
But if you're willing to do that, I'll make sure that you get that paperwork and you get it taken care of.
I mean, we feel moral obligation to do it anyway, so we might as well be the adopter.
So we're gonna change the sign to say port,
No, it'll say worldwide.
worldwide terminals.
I mean, I would be in favor of it being Bushhire Port Authority and us doing it. I mean, I would be in favor of us
I
actually.
cannot walk that road, I cannot physically.
No, we will do it. I mean, we're your contractor.
I know, but
We're
I
happy
don't want to, I don't want
No,
to
no,
vote
but
on this
keep
and
your name.
have the port workers now be committed. I mean,
Why
clean
not?
up the trash with the truckers. It's just,
Why not?
Look, again,
There's other roads that we can adopt,
Yeah.
that OPA can adopt. We can adopt the
Not front street.
or we can adopt the industrial park. I'm trying to blank on the name.
Go right down the road.
Yeah.
Nassau Industrial.
There it is, yes. The one we did the sign for.
Yeah.
That's Trade Place.
Trade Place.
That's our Trade Place. We could adopt that road. If you want a road to adopt, then let's do the.
Well, I don't know about that. Hey,
There's several roads available.
yeah,
We can adopt areas along A1A.
yeah,
but.
how do you
if
get folks to clean it? You don't
Yeah.
have personnel.
How you gonna monitor it all
If
the time?
Worldwide adopts that road, Dade Street, that's better better relationship with the city.
Yes.
To let them know that you're responsible for doing that, and hopefully you'll do it and get it done.
No, we will. Well, all my only point is it's your pleasure as a board. We will provide the labor and the monitoring to keep that road clean. If you would prefer to have your name on the sign, that's fine. If you would prefer to have our name on the sign, you don't want to have it on.
No.
Okay, you don't trust us to keep it clean.
so I just think that it should be volunteer hours that do it. I don't think we should make a vote and then compel people, wage workers, to go
We're
and pick
not,
up trash.
we're not compelling anybody. That'd be his responsibility. If he wants to compel his employees to do that, or if he wants to ask for volunteers to do it, that'd be up to him, not us. So we're not compelling anybody to do anything.
It's gonna be during working hours. It's gonna send a guy out there to walk the street, clean up, go back to work.
We'll send the paperwork to you and you can, if you don't want to, if you don't want to do it, let us know. Okay.
Never agree, sign on the seat.
Okay. All right, the next thing on the agenda under new business is the security contract. I've had them call me every week wanting more money for their employees. And I told them, I said, we can't increase your employees' pay. That's up to you with the existing contract that you have now. If you want us to provide you more money, what's gonna happen is probably this board's gonna say, well, let's put it out for bid and see if we can get a better contract. So let's look for discussion. What would you want to do? We cannot, they're not our employees, again. We cannot pay them unless we put a new contract with them that.
I think what they're asking you to do, so the contract, I believe, includes an hourly rate for the different levels of service. They're asking you to revise those hourly rates.
Right, do it up, bump up.
Well, that means we have to contribute more money.
Cost more, sure. I think 2008, that's what we talked about. Could we revisit the whole thing? That's what we, I mean, but there was an amendment. The rate is not from 2008. And I will just say, under the federal procurement guidelines, the hourly rate is now $15 an hour.
Yes.
So the contract does not meet federal procurement guidelines as far as, I believe that their rate, I'm going to say it's $11 to $12. Right, the federal procurement rate went from $10 an hour. So the federal minimum wage, right, for federal contracts on January 1st went from $10 to $15 an hour. And so,
And if they have to call over extra guards from Jacksonville, that's what they have to pay them, because that's what they get paid over there.
right, I mean, yeah, that's the contract rate, exactly. So yeah, they're asking, and there was I believe there was a minimum rate already at one point since the contract was signed.
Yeah.
Obviously, should we do a new contract? Should we rebid it?
I think we should rebid it. I've been told that they don't have a problem with us rebidding it because they think they're gonna be the lowest bidder. And, you know, that's up to them, whatever they want to bid, but I think that's what we should do, is rebid it. I'm gonna ask Patrick to put. We need to put together a resolution, whatever.
I think,
RFQ.
I think you should just be mindful that if you rebid it, the rates are gonna go up.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know how much more time here they have under the current rates? They're gonna go up precipitously.
They're not, there's no time. I mean, the contract is evergreen. So just the rate. It's
Don't they get
specified.
an annual adjustment at PPI or something?
That's why they want to renegotiate the rates. That's why they're asking for. But no, there's no provision. I'll have to read it over. I mean, I read it very briefly, and we're talking about submitting it for ARPA funds, but no, it's evergreen. No, it doesn't, the rates don't change annually or anything.
Even if we increase what we've given each employee in the contract, you're only talking about 6-8 employees total.
They're struggling to maintain enough
Yeah.
regular people to cover the port.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
And that's one reason why.
Right, well, because of the wages are too low, and they have some decent experienced people that have been with us, and they just can't keep them at those wages. But I'm also concerned that they've recently taken on Jacksonville, or one, I don't know if they have the entire port or some portions of Jacksonville. And it makes me think that, you know, Jacksonville's paying more, and the question is that the best situation for Fernandina to be in, where they're larger, more lucrative contractors with the port down the road, and that leaves us getting the short end of the stick of the labor pool. So that's maybe something Patrick could think about in a new bid, to kind of have something to address that. And then failure to be able to produce manning. I mean, Ray Nelson had to take an overnight shift last week. He wouldn't do it any other way because we had a shipping port, and so you must have a man there. If you had no shipping port, you could lock the gates, keep the cameras on, and on the overnight shift, be unattended. Although that's not what.
So it's a situation we got to resolve.
Yeah.
I think this is the best way to do it.
The other thing we can, and I'll look into this, that you can talk to somebody at Jackport about this, putting in the RFQ that the bidders have to provide information about how they would secure federal security grant money as part of the deal.
Mm.
So.
Okay.
Homeland security money out there.
Yeah, there is.
These guys, I believe, are national contractors, so they should.
Yes, they are.
They should be
They are.
able to
They
do
should
that,
know.
but I don't see them doing it in our case. I mean, they have to.
Okay. Any further discussion about this? Patrick, you'll take care of that? It's on my list. All right. All right, let's move on quickly to committee reports. I don't have anything for port security. FDOT, just told you about it today at the next FDOT meeting. The grant we lost for lighting, so that's the only thing I have for that. Customs House, Commissioner Franklin, you got anything for Customs House?
No, I don't have anything to report, no, sir.
Nothing, he said.
Okay. Corps of Engineers, we sent a letter to them about, help me out, Chris, did you get your letter to them?
No, I have to do that.
You need to do that
Yeah.
because they need it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'll do that.
That's about the main request for the.
Yeah, the new request.
supplemental
Maintenance
One we just sent them last year, but they need a new date on it.
This year.
Yeah. Any word on the maintenance dredging, how,
No, I'm due to give Bo a call and get an update on that.
okay, good. Economic development, Commissioner Cole.
Economic development, we had a breakfast where we had, investor, trying to think of the correct acronym, but I can't come up with it right now. But, it was a very good turnout. There was a lot of good discussions and, a lot of good leads for new people coming in. I actually toured, took two gentlemen from Atlanta, on a tour of Crawford Land and the surrounding areas for their business. A lot of good things are in the queue, and it's coming up, and we haven't done it yet, but it's getting very close.
And it's possible we could use some of our bonding capability for that business.
That'd be okay. That's it on the economic development.
All right, emergency management.
I'm definitely done with my prerequisites and have my managed made and and all that stuff. So I'm waiting on their search meeting, CERT.
Okay. PCC.
We had a meeting this week. We just discussed, I spoke with Chris and Mike, they put in their request for future proposal for what the board is looking for.
And I heard Chris saying something.
Yeah, that was sent out on Friday. So I mean, it was productive and we got that in, so hopefully we'll see how next month out plays out on us. And I know Mike will be coming up.
We have a meeting tomorrow.
What was that for me?
There's nothing to talk about other than if we have this wish list and we'll portion of it. Were you able to put in there about the work about the traffic study? Yeah, so we asked for a traffic study to be done. That was brought up during that meeting. That was on our wish list, and I believe if I can, we kind of push that. Okay.
Good. All right, Nassau Chamber, Commissioner Hill.
Leadership Nassau had its tour yesterday, and we did Rayonier on the west side. We got to go out and walk out in the sticks and watch trees grow.
Oh, I've been there, yeah.
And learn all about the sustainable forestry practices that Rayonier is engaging in.
That's very
How
interesting.
cool forestry is. They only have 400 direct employees, but they indirectly contributed 2,000 jobs through contractors and others.
You go out to Crandall?
We did.
Yeah.
And
That's interesting.
visited with, in the afternoon, we did a tour of the city water department and learned that we actually don't have multiple days of water up in the towers. You might think that they fill that tower, I think it's 3 to 4 times a day to fill up the towers. We have 3 separate water towers. That was an interesting experience. I didn't realize our water is about 10,000 years old.
Yeah.
And just around some fun facts. And then we toured Westrock, and that was pretty cool to see what goes on behind the gates. And they contribute $1.2 billion to the local fund. If you think about that, that's not even 100 million. That's 1,000 million. $1.2 billion. But news you can use. They have 2 recycling locations where you can bring your boxes from Amazon that are filling up your recycling bin that the city's not picking up. You can take all of your boxes to 2 separate locations. One's on Franklin Street and the other one, I checked, I couldn't find the info on your website. But I think that, I didn't even know that. You can actually take your photo. So they've had this, yep. They have, so right inside the gate, I guess, they have one, and then the other one is on Franklin. And then they have basically boxes where they accept your used boxes. And they say that is it's less than 1% of what they use and that they recycle at that facility annually.
What's that about the mill?
No, I'm talking about West Rock, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Very good.
Good to
That
know.
it?
We have to do that once a month.
I do have something for the city of Fernandina.
Okay, let me park in on the Chamber of Commerce here real quick. I talked to Regina Duncan and asked her for a letter of support for cruise ships. She informed me that her board did not want to do that at this time because they did not want to offend West Rock, which is one of their biggest customers. I asked her if there's any way that we could get that changed and get them some information they needed. And she suggested that I go talk to their board of directors the next time they have the board meeting. And I agreed to do that. She's supposed to let me know when we can do that because I want to inform them of all the benefits for the city bringing the cruise ships in. That will benefit the city because I think cruise ship is not going to continue. I think they've got it scheduled now, but in the future, they may not schedule it for a year because they can't get to our facility. So I'm going to go talk to them about that and see what we can work out. City of Fernandina, I'm sorry.
Before you go, before you leave that subject, I think the chamber meets on the 16th at 11:30. Double check with her about it.
Yeah, well,
But also the 28th of this month is the Chamber's Gala.
Yeah.
The Ritz Omni coming up.
yeah, and that's pretty expensive. I decided not to go to this one this year.
So if you do go and speak, I think you would have to speak as an individual because you can't delegate authority to you to go
Oh, no.
do that. And I'm not in support of passenger vessels at the port because, like I said, $1.2 billion comes in from West Rock.
Well, we would never do it without their permission. But the more support we can get from the city and chamber would help them decide whether they eventually wanted to give us some waivers. So that's why I'm doing it. But I know you're not supporting.
And so can we move on to the city?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's next. Go ahead.
So, and I brought this up at the joint meeting, the trains that come during the city events. And this really is not something that OPA has been actively involved in the past, as far as I know. Someone named Mary Hamburg used to work for the city and coordinate with the railroad so that if possible, the timing of the trains would be changed or the event would be changed so that there weren't hundreds of people near where the trains are coming at the time, as has happened for every single major event. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I've attended 3 out of probably 6 of those events, and each time I was there, the train came right as everyone's congregated in that area. I've contacted.
Anytime.
Right, right. I mean, I just think that that's something that government, like public safety, is something the government should take responsibility for. But I contacted Gail Martin and also First Coast Rail, and I got a really quick response from Chris Felix at First Coast Rail. And he provided his personal cell phone number for coordination with the city. And I'm working with their events planning committee to see if we can add a component to their permitting process for special events so that they've, with the police auxiliary and all of that, they've coordinated with the railroad, a safety component for the events. So that's all I have for the city.
Okay. Administrative office managers report. Do you have anything further? Present?
None. You have my report.
Any other items to be brought before the commission? Hearing none, meeting's done. Thank you for your time.